Hello, this is part two of Word of the Horde, that famous podcast, episode three, I think. It's all blurring into one now. Anyway, let's just get on with it.
Contact tracing app thing as well. It's like
Mm.
that. I don't know. It's just so many elements to it which will change society. I think.
Yep, yep, definitely.
Like I said, I think people the stigma of it, like I said, coming into work with a cold, I think will start to be like literally you just go home, you get sent home
Yeah,
immediately.
that's
No
great because
discussion.
I always look like death when I get a cold. I get a
I've
cold
always
once a
wanted
year
that. I
for like
hate
4 days, and I always feel like absolute warmed up death. I'm snotty. I get runny, like my mouth, my nose, my eyes, everything runs. So I'm
well,
just like ugh,
I fucking.
sweaty and
I mean, I don't
gross.
get ill too often, but it's like I absolutely hate
No, once a
uh,
year, once a year.
being. I absolutely hate having to work near someone who's got a cold. Or
Hmm.
coughing and spluttering and all
I'm
that. It's
rubbish at it.
fucking disgusting. I can't stand it.
Yeah,
And so
no, I
yeah,
agree. I agree.
I think that'll change. I mean, there's gonna be so many things that'll
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
alter. And like I said, I think just the stigma of being close and it's going to be strange because obviously we're both very handsome single men and like obviously
Definitely single men. I'll give
what's
you
the
that.
scenario for like dating, kind of women and that
Yeah.
like it's like how close do you go? I mean, obviously you don't know where to go to date. Like, I mean, obviously I was talking to that Canadian girl and she's in her
Hmm.
house in Liverpool somewhere, like, and I'm in my house and it's just like I haven't spoken to her for like a month, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
what happens if we unlock lockdown's lifted? Do I
yeah. Hmm.
First off, I might not have a place to take her because pubs and things might not open and restaurants and stuff. So what do we do?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
secondly,
yeah.
it's like how close are we allowed to get when we see each other? What's and that's up to us. What if she's like, I
Hmm.
don't know, like don't we need to wait 2 weeks? Just and then it's like how close? It's like a leap of faith. It's almost like as bad as AIDS, you know for sex
Yeah, yeah.
as well as for all the other implications it has with society, like
Hmm.
and just getting close to someone. It's like we haven't even thought about that sort of side of it yet. Kind
Not
of.
to mention, it's like it's hard enough to get to know some people anyway, let alone if they've been by themselves for 3 months and they're just fucking mental. You know what I mean? I mean, we're lucky because we can have these conversations where we can have in-depth, crazy conversations about like the truest aspects of ourselves. We can have
I'd
real
be having this
like
conversation on
if
my
me and you
own
were small
if you
talkers,
weren't with
like
me.
if me, yeah, exactly. But if me and you were like small talkers and like, like me and my dad, for example, like I had a half an hour conversation with my dad the other day, hands down the longest conversation I've ever had on the phone with my dad. Like I've talked to him obviously in real life, but on the phone it's normally like 3 to 4 minutes
Yeah,
most. Like I've had conversations where I haven't spoken to him for a month, and I've spoken to him on the phone, and I looked afterwards, and it's like a minute and a half. I'm like, oh, nice. He's just like, hey there, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Like, is everything going all
bang
right? Yeah,
bang
is work all
bang,
right? Yeah, not too bad.
done.
Blah blah blah. Anyway, mate, I've got to go, but I'll catch up soon. And I'm like, perfect. It's like that's excellent. But with me and you, we can have a hour conversation and still be like, I'll call you tomorrow because I've just got a thought. I
Yeah.
just want to write it down. You know, but some people will have had maybe a conversation with their mom and dad for half an hour, maybe like some sort of yoga class or whatever. But they may have had the minimum amount of human contact per day for three to 4 months, and then go back to work skin and worried and lost and
Well, this is what
depressed
I
or
wanted to
whatever.
text her about because
They're the people that are going to be difficult.
she was like she just moved here. She's only been here like 2 or 3 weeks before this lockdown sort of came in, started kicking in. She,
Hmm.
and so she's only got some friends that live in the area. She didn't. Her job was put on furlough, or
Right.
and so she was looking at getting another job, and that was the last I heard. So it's like if she potentially didn't get a job, and she's just sat in that flat, on her own, like with barely any
Yeah,
furniture,
yeah.
with no one coming round, just having random phone conversations or whatever with friends, like, and not seeing anyone, just going to the shops.
Hmm. Yeah, just go to the shops and watching like the people on TV become your friends, which
Yeah.
I mean for me has always been the case. But for some people that's new. Yeah, like I say, I think one thing that's come up quite recently, which a lot of people have started to talk about, is like the fact that if you're around a small group of people for a long period of time, you can, like, your immune system can be affected by it, because obviously you're not getting the normal germs and pathogens and fucking snot.
That's the other
and coughs
scenario.
and shit.
Yeah, because it's like when everyone goes back into the world, all of a sudden everyone's been in their own little ecosystems for fucking like 2.5 months or 3 months, and then everyone's immune system is only geared to fight off things from your family members or whoever you live with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky because I live in a mold-ridden, petrol-filled boat, so I'm, like,
river,
my immune system's like full of like, let's do this.
You may as well be living. You may as well be living in a field next to an old barn.
I'm in a colony. I'm in a colony of like different things. You know,
That's what I mean.
like,
It's like
I'm probably going to be all right. I'm in nature as well. There's a lot of nature and bugs and spiders' webs and dirt. I'm all over that shit. I'm constantly. I had my first shower today, and I realised I hadn't had a shower for like nearly a week. It's like 6 days.
I thought you were going to say like my first shower of the fucking lockdown. It was amazing.
No, for like nearly a week. I was just like, and I didn't smell particularly. I wasn't like I was gross, but I was just like, it was hot, and I'm like, I feel kind of gross. And I'm like, I should probably have a shower. I'm like, when was the last time I showered? About a week ago. Probably a week ago. Yeah.
I'd be itching.
I've been like kayaking. That might be why my beard was getting on my tits, though, to be honest, because it was just getting annoying. So I shaved my beard off today, because it was just one of them things where it's like it's fucking red hot, and I've got a big old ginger beard that's like scraggly, and I haven't seen humans, so I haven't it's not kept. It just looks like a crazy man. So I thought I'd shave it down. So I've got a nice stubble now. It's quite nice and comfortable.
I trimmed my beard down the other week, but my hair is fucking ludicrous right now. It's just all over the show, and I just need a
Oh man, I've had 2 haircuts from my mum. My mum's given me 2 haircuts so far. Literally just getting to shave the sides to a 2. It's like, just leave the top, don't worry about it, it'll grow out. But just get to shave both the sides down to a 2 and the back to a 2. So it's just like a bit of a Peaky Blinders. It's just shave it off. You look alright with the shaved head. Although shaved head and no beard, you look a bit weird.
Like shave off, I don't know. I'll do something with it. I need to do something. It's just getting too long now.
Yeah, it's just getting wild and crazy.
Like a fucking knob. Anyway, can I pause this a second? I want to go and get a drink quickly downstairs.
Yeah, go do it.
Just see me ma, so
I'll do adverts. So today's podcast is sponsored by One Eye Pete's tractor company. And just a story about One Eye Pete. He started as a small-time farmer, just Pete at the time, actually, weirdly enough. Pete's farm and housing supplies, and he slowly expanded through years. He got a loan from the government and helped his business expand in southern Texas. He sells livestock and corn tools for working on the farms. The reason they call him One Eye Pete is because he lost his eye to a raccoon in a bet. So that's One Eye Pete. I know when I think tractors, I think One Eye Pete. Our other sponsor for the podcast today is Aqua Tigers. These are a new type of tiger, recently released in the Philippines. Actually, they came from. They mixed a tiger with a seal to make a aqua tiger. It looks like a tiger, but it also has like webbed fingers. And you can sponsor Aqua Tiger research by going to www.aquatiger.org, and you can sponsor the tigers, and you get like a little certificate, you get a picture of your Aqua Tiger, and you also get the opportunity to sign up to a feeding program where when you're dead, you get fed to the Aqua Tiger, because they survive solely on human flesh. So at the moment, they're working on a program with the people that made the Impossible Burger to try and create a substitute, or perhaps grow human meat in a lab to feed the Aqua Tigers. But at the moment, we're looking for sponsors to get us through the next couple of levels of research to really create a dominant Aqua Tiger. Again, that's www.aquatiger.
Hello.
Actually,
You've
just finished.
Something about
a
tiger. Yeah, okay.
Aqua Tiger, yeah, that's one of our sponsors. We got sponsored by Aqua Tiger. It was a Filipino invention where they created a half tiger, half seal think I said seal, which is basically a tiger with webbed fingers, and they survive predominantly on human meat. So you sponsor them to be able to do research into human meat substitutes for the aqua tigers, but you also sign up to give your body to the aqua tiger at the time of your
Great cause, good cause.
your death.
Yeah, no, it's a good cause.
Great cause, really good cause. Yeah. I think it's really important that we support these world-changing causes.
Doing great things, really. Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, Aqua Tiger. It's Aqua Tiger. I use one myself.
Aqua Tiger. I've signed up for it, and hopefully I'll die soon to feed one of our aqua tigers.
So. Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah. Okay. So I'll review those reads and we'll send them off to the. I'm sure they'll be all right. They won't have any issues.
I can't see that.
Usually pretty slack, aren't they? Usually pretty lenient about reads.
Yeah, no, I think Aqua Tiger will be all right. I think Aqua Tiger will be fine. I think to be honest, they'll be quite happy that they sponsored our podcast.
Yeah. All right. So, where were we?
Where were we?
What were we talking about? What was happening? What's happening in the world? What was that? The universe? What? Yeah.
So we talked about the universe.
Entire universe.
And the quarantine.
So we've covered the entire universe.
Three big questions.
Aliens.
Other life in the universe and our current situation and how it is affected and
the history
how it will affect
of the human race. So how about
specifically focused on Napoleon? Yeah, we did a good bit about.
Yeah, there's a bit about Napoleon.
It's quite an educated podcast so far.
It's been alright actually. I took on more information than I thought. No,
it's quite good. It's quite a good time to take on information, I think, because when we come out of this, we're going to be doing a lot of talking. There's going to be a lot of hanging around with people and being like, what did you do during the quarantine? And I don't want to be one of them guys where I played 12 games and I've done nothing since, so I've got nothing to talk about.
I have hammered Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I'll give them that.
Of course, I played a lot of games.
I think, there'll be a lot of people. I think noticeably you'll get there'll be a thing like called, I don't know what they call it, but it'll be like kind of lockdown fatigue, or something like, I don't know if they're already calling it that, but something. I mean, when they come out of it, it'll be lockdown slowness or something where people will be like, oh, my brain, I just feel dead slow and lethargic, and I can't get back up to like social speed, Do
you know what I think it'll be like? Have you ever met anybody that's recently come out of prison?
Yeah, they've got no social skill.
They don't really have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, because they're not up to date.
It's prison, but they don't really want to talk about prison because that's what everyone asks them about, and obviously I'm guessing it's not a good time for most people. A lot of time you're like, so have you seen this on TV? Like you find it's quite difficult. It can be quite difficult to talk to people with find some deeper meaning without it being like, so what was prison like? But yeah, I think it's going to be like that. I think some people are just going to be like, they've got nothing to talk about because they didn't do anything last week. They didn't go to a certain restaurant that you were asking about.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I stopped talking to the Canadian lady just over text, because she was like, I don't really want to talk on the phone for some reason. I was like, all right, whatever, fuck you then. So I thought, well, I've got nothing to say on text, kind of. I'm not doing anything, and we're not at the point where I can just go, oh, fucking hell, I just had a smoke and I'm playing Assassin's Creed and doing fuck all, or I can't really talk to her about aliens or some weird shit, So
that's what you should do. Maybe that's like your new filter. You just text them going, so I just watched this new documentary about aliens. What are your thoughts on aliens? If they text back, then you're in.
I think my thing is, I already feel like I'm in anyway with her, but there's no point. My theory was, if I could only conduct a text relationship over the course operation.
Operation.
This is an mate. It would have been what it's like when it would have been an operation the way it was going. Like I'd have been like fucking. The potential for I wouldn't have advanced the relationship in any way over text for 3 months. So the only operation that I'd be doing is an operation where I go backwards. It's like.
It's like you're just waiting, you're just maintaining,
exactly,
and you have no answers, and maintenance, that's why I think a lot of relationships struggle after a couple of years, because that's the point where it gets to like maintaining. It's the same with training or anything like that. It's like it's quite easy to get six-pack out. It's not easy. It's difficult to get six-pack abs.
It's easy to become a Shaolin
for the
master.
Next 10 years. Well, it's like it's easy to become like it's a lot of people say it's easier to win a MMA belt than it is to retain it in a
All
match.
the people
Because
that
it's
have
like,
won MMA belts.
well, there's probably 1,000 of them. But you know what I mean?
All
Like, a lot of them
the
say it's not
absolute
about
top of the fucking
it's not
elite
until
fighters.
it's not. Well, yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like
No,
if
no.
the elites say that, then
Yeah,
but
no,
or whatever it is, it's easy to eat healthy for a month and just be like, yeah, I eat healthy now. But then a year later to be keeping that up is nearly impossible.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's very difficult
Well,
unless you're super dedicated and you change your habits and stuff.
in order to be the
And I think
man,
with
you gotta
texts,
beat the man. Woo!
you got to beat them. Yeah.
Sorry,
But with texts,
blew
I
everyone's
always
ears
find
out.
like if it's if there's more than 2 weeks between starting a text chain and meeting the person, I tend to give up. Like 2 weeks is like my limit.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks, like if they're like, oh, like normally it'll happen. Like I find like Wednesday onwards is when you don't tend to like get like a reply on a Monday. Like Wednesday, like you start like if you text a girl on Wednesday and she'll text back, and then you can be like, "What are you doing this weekend?" And if they can't do anything that weekend, you've got the next weekend, and then you kind of
And then you're
fucked.
done, yeah.
It's like you've
Yeah,
got
there's
like
like a window
what
when you
next
first
weekend?
start talking to
Exactly.
an online person, like, yeah.
Exactly, because after that, it's like you say, it's like you can't just be like, "So what are you doing today?" Because like, well, the same thing I did every day. I've been working. I got up, went to work, and
I'll be
I remember
honest.
this one
Sorry,
last.
just
Sorry,
quickly.
go on.
I've had a few women though, I mean, I've talked to a few women on that are just kind of the opinion where they just like don't talk, until we meet. And like I've done that a bunch of times. I've just said, "Sound well,
Mhm.
I'll text you, or text me when you want to meet," and then fucking
Yeah.
you just don't conduct the conversation until then.
Yeah, so I've not had too many like that. I've had, like I said, I've had some that have continued, like had a conversation for a couple of weeks, and maybe we met up once and it's continued, but then it's like it's been too long the second time before we met up, or we haven't met up quick enough, and then like I've had times where it's like 3 weeks and you finally meet and you're like, oh, they're awesome, and then they're like, oh, I don't know, I didn't feel the spark. I'm like, well, we texted for the last 3 weeks. But I've also had where they just keep texting and they're like I had this one last and she was like, this girl at work is this and blah blah blah. Fucking, she's getting on my tits, and like the manager's really nice to her and she's really useless. I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, you can only do what you want to do. She's like, yeah, I know, but I'm like, whoa, too familiar. Like, she was like, yeah, I fucking get that, but you're not listening. But I'm like, whoa, I haven't even met you yet. Way too familiar. I'm not like your counselor. I'm just saying, like, it sounds from what you're telling me. It sounds like you just need to ignore this bitch and do what you can do, and then you're going to be as good as you say you are. But yeah, I think some people do tend to, and it's kind of died out that way. But yeah, I do know what you mean. It's very hard to maintain like some sort of like even if you were in a relationship now, if you were in a relationship with someone, but you weren't quarantined together, it'd be very difficult to maintain like that relationship unless you were super stable and strong and
This is it. I'm almost, because we'd seen each other probably 6 times or something, like, but we'd had a one date out in the real world, then we'd had a second one just when my back was terrible and fucking and I had to go down, and that was the last time I kind of saw her. And fucking, and like I'd had a couple of like times where I'd gone round to her house a couple of times, in between, but we didn't have sex or anything, like. So I was like, well, if I had, it'd have been like 2 weeks into banging and fucking having a laugh and all this.
Yeah.
And then this happened. We'd probably be like stuck texting all the time and being like, "Oh, I miss you," and all this.
Yeah,
shit.
you were trying to maintain it. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas
you feel more
right
inclined
now,
to have to try and maintain it.
yes,
Whereas
exactly.
now you're kind of like, well,
mm,
you're some mates, and maybe you'll be mates afterwards, and maybe it'll go further than that. But
we've even said that to each other, and I've just been like, and plus secretly, I'm just kind of like, well, I could never hear from her again, and it wouldn't bother me really at this point.
Well, let's hope she's not listening, because she's going to be like, "Oh, I was in love with this guy. I've been spending the last 3 months
Just
looking at
discovered
dresses."
this new podcast that keeps me company, because it sounds just like
Yeah.
this guy that I met just
it sounds
before.
like this guy from Roof, but he sounds really interesting. And now I just realised it's an absolute arsehole.
The same guy, and he hates me.
He hates me. He just doesn't give a fuck. Oh wow. Shit. But no, like I say, there is aspects that I think people are going to be weird when they come out of this. I think I'm going to be weird when I come out of this. I think there's definitely going to be a bit more of like a fire up my ass, because it's like anything could get taken away from you if it can happen.
Yes,
once.
that's what I mean.
Yeah, certainly happen again within our lifetime, a much worse scale. So
I think just quickly
also,
on that point. So I just think as well. Like I feel like I've just had like my 40th year stolen there. Like 41st year. And it's like, okay, I haven't got that much time, so that's a lot of time just taken out. So I'm going to be a bit more Careful
Yeah,
with time.
totally. Yeah, it's given us the opportunity to realise that it's like anything. Anytime you meet a hurdle, you can either be like, "This is shit, my life's terrible," or you can be like, "Oh, that's given me an eye opener to, move forward in a different way and not be the same person I always was, the same person that's been going through the motions for however long or whatever." And like I say, we're a bit more open people, and we talk about this in depth on a regular basis. And I'm quite a motivated person, and I know what I like, how I want out of my life anyway. But I also like, even like talking to girls. Sometimes I'm just like, because I'm, for the listeners, I'll let you know, not great looking, but not bad looking, but quite funny, terrible women. But it'll also give me the opportunity to kind of be like, well, what am I going to lose by going and talk to that lass? She might not have had anyone talk to her for 3 months. She might be interested. Or she might be like, not you. I've realised what I want over the last 3 months and it isn't your face.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But either way, it's going to give me a bit more kind of enthusiasm to kind of go out and go, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? Worst that can happen is end up in quarantine by myself, which actually is the best possible scenario, because any girl I've dated since probably Joe, who's a long-term one, I've not wanted to spend 3 months alone with. So,
potentially, this is like a flash forward to our like retirement as like pensioners, where we're just single men who never married, and it's like,
yeah,
this
that's
is
an interesting way of putting it.
What it would be like,
It's not so bad, but if I was more frail and slower and stuff, it might be a bit like rougher. Yeah.
Would I need the company, or would I just be really happy to just go, hey, I could just play games and watch movies till I die?
I do honestly think most of my relationships over the last 10 years have mainly been driven on sex. Just like I could just do with someone to have sex with that I don't dislike.
Exactly,
and I don't mean that in any sort of negative way. It's like I just haven't had the same connection with people over the last sort of 10 years, but I'm still a man,
relationships with every woman I've ever had. With,
like, exactly.
It's just like, I'll
just
be with this person because she wants to have sex multiple times with me, and she's good enough.
Yeah. Oh, she's good enough. I got really like that last one bit in there a little bit. There. Yeah. She's good enough. It was like, that's a little bit of damage.
Like, who the fuck do you think you are, mate?
Oh, 100%. I know, exactly, 100%. And like, and don't get me wrong, like that's why I think I've also not made the same connection, because like I think someone that I'd be like, I'd want someone more intelligent, and smarter, and faster, and better looking, and it's like this imaginary person that I'm waiting for doesn't exist. But
yeah, and I'm getting older and older.
I'm very comfortable with myself.
Person.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous, but it's also I've done it this long. It's like
I'm on the downhill.
No, I don't know. I think I'm on the brink of potentially collapsing, but I do think I've got better as I've got older.
I think I'm plateauing right now.
100%. I think that's what I mean. I think I've got to like about 40, and then it's going to start to like it might be all right. I might turn into a handsome older man, but there's definitely wrinkles that weren't there, which aren't flattering. There's definitely, like it's much harder to be fit. If I'd spent in my 20s, if I'd spent 3 months training, I'd be ripped. And at the moment, I'm like, I'm trying to maintain I'm trying to get a six pack. I'm not even trying to maintain it. Whereas like before, I would have already had it. It's just like doing stuff, and just like I had to take 2 days off working out because I was just absolutely just cooked. So the last 2 days, I started training again today, but I was just like, I can't do it. I need 2 days off. I just need a proper recovery. Whereas when I was a kid, I just keep doing it. I just do it every day because what difference does it make? But yeah, there's aspects like that where I'm just like, yeah, there's definitely like the engine's just starting to slow down a little bit. Occasionally there's a tick, you know what I mean? Occasionally there's like a little knocking sound that isn't quite the same as it used to be. Yeah. So, but I do also think like I can see myself. Many a time I've considered whether I'm going to end up alone, and I can see myself alone. And if it is this, and I have like lack of a sex drive because I'm older, maybe it'll be all right. But then I probably won't want to play games. It'd make it a lot easier. It would make it a lot easier because,
Plus, add some kind of like Oasis type of.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, also by that point, I'm sure I can hook into some sort of, cerebro type supercomputer thing, and then just do whatever I want. The world's going to be a different place. People are going to be different. Age is going to be a different concept. Like whether you're old or young.
Imagine. Do you think
still going to be able to cope?
Do you think? Sorry, just quick. I don't know why I'm saying just quickly. This is not a quick subject.
Okay. I've got a subject in my head, but I'll let that go because this is going to be a long one. Okay, yeah, go for it.
You can jump back to it. Do you think the people have been born now who will never die? The first people who will become immortal have been born. Like whether it be
I know. It might be a baby. It might be
uploading to some AI, whatever.
Yeah. Weirdly, that does sort of tie into what I was thinking, because what I was thinking is about like,
Usually
do you
does.
think along with this cerebral like update that we're going to get, do you think there'll also be like enhancements in body? Do you think that'll be like the coincide with like as our mind extends, they'll find a way to extend our bodies, and like stimulants and like steroids and stuff will become more enhanced, and so you can because I do think like genetic modification in children will begin, and probably has begun, like whether it's eye colors or height or less adversity to disease and stuff, because that's how they'll start it. They'll start like,
it'll be
we
the
can give
little
you a kid this
things.
injection and they have like a
It'd be like
99%
loot
chance they'll
boxes.
never
It's
catch the
only
coronavirus.
cosmetic. It's only cosmetic.
Yeah, and then it'll be like,
Then
we
it's
can
an
make sure they've
enhancement, it's a
got
game-altering
this much of
enhancement.
your mother's DNA, or they have your grandmother's eyes, and so
Exactly.
your grandmother had green eyes but you had blue eyes, but this generation will definitely have a little part of your DNA and stuff.
Give you
And I
spider
think that will
abilities.
be the next step. Whether I think that's going to happen, like that will happen within our lifetime, but whether the person that's going to happen to is alive yet, I don't know. So I don't think necessarily there's somebody alive now that will live forever, but 150, yeah, I could see like the average age of death becoming like 100.
But you don't
Like I
think
can see like 100 years.
like Elon Musk in his last like 20 years, he'll just go down a real dark path of just like
Yeah,
creating some
I
kind of
was also
system
thinking
that he
like
can upload
there's
his
definitely
consciousness
people.
to.
Yeah, there's definitely people
He's
with
the
their like
first one.
their bodies already frozen or
I
their
don't know why
minds
it always
frozen,
comes
like
back to Elon Musk.
because he's the only person. He's like
He's our
this is
universe's
what I was saying
Tony
last
Stark.
time. It's like he's our
Or
universe, so you can either
he's
go
either
one or
Tony
the other. He's either
Stark
Doctor Doom or Tony
or
Stark.
Doctor Doom. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one or the other. You know what I mean? It's like he's one of them guys. It's like I feel like he'll be the that kind of person. Or he'll die. He'll just disappear one day. He'll be in a car crash or fucking crash a Iron Man suit or something. Like that's how I
Take
think
off in
it'll be
one of his rockets into space, and there'll be like an explosive
and just
disaster.
you'll never see him again. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but then like 50 years later, Elon Musk will come back. It'll be like a younger version, clone version of him,
Like
and he's actually just
grudges.
colonized Mars. Yeah, I wouldn't be like that's the only other thing. I don't think somebody's is born yet that will be able to like live as a human for the rest for like eternity. But that could potentially happen in the future, or like at least a very very long time. Could somebody potentially upload their mind to a computer? I think there'll be attempts at that within our lifetime. Yeah. Definitely. I think somebody will. I mean, that's probably already going on. To be honest with you, I think somebody's probably trying to map the human brain and like map how memories are created and whether you can like unlock memories biologically that will then transfer to data, and then it's just so yeah, or some sort of like construct where it's like like say it's like the Oasis but they're in it, and and because that's the other thing, it's like what if they offered the Oasis but you put your body in a machine and it takes your brain out and it puts it in a machine and your body dies, but you still get the Oasis, you know what I mean, like and you can live forever.
I think wouldn't that just be an option? Well, I suppose for some people they're like, I don't want to wait because I could die of an accident or something could or happen that I might not get to, or I could get dementia or some disease that my mind dissipates. So you go, so maybe at 45 I'll just go into the Oasis.
Or maybe it doesn't, like after the age of 50, your brain can't like keep up with the Oasis, so you have to do it at an early age. Or like
that's creepy. I imagine that
like
you have to do it by you're 21, and so all the youth of the world just end up going into the Oasis, and the whole world
just disappear, and then like humanity's actually like lost,
children of men,
sort of thing, because there's no one to have babies.
Outside it's children of men, and inside it's the Oasis, and they're all like, Wee!
It's the Oasis, yeah. It's like the best place ever, and like the whole world's burning, and they're actually like they're trying to keep the machines running so the people inside don't all die. This is a sci-fi series we can watch.
Yeah, because that's our civilization now.
Yeah, because that's like the rest of humanity. Like
that links with the other one where it's like the whole civilization. What was the other idea I had where like the whole we had? I don't know.
You've got the recordings.
I don't know who comes up.
I can't fucking remember.
No, the
one where I normally have a drink and then I have a smoke. And, yeah,
no,
fuck knows what we're talking about.
The idea where it's like they get like some disaster happens on their planet, like a virus, something that kills people really quickly, and so they have no choice but to fucking upload everyone's mind to like Oasis style fucking
we were
Matrix.
talking about like a Yeah,
and it's and now our whole civilization is trapped in this simulation, and we've got to work out how to get out of it.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, and also, like, if you said to people, like, if you said to people with regards to, like, the we'll call it the Oasis. We need to find a name for it, the Construct or the Matrix or whatever it is you can download into. But, like, if you put your brain in it, you get free access all the time, and you're basically like, a super being. But otherwise, you can download into it, but you're still a human, and also you still have to come out of it to eat, sleep, piss. You can still be killed in
so you're
in
a
the real
limited
world.
user AI. You're like a limited user when you're like a person, but if you upload and sacrifice a human, you become like a fucking elite boss or something in the game.
Yeah, or you get like NPC powers, so it's like, yeah, you can do that, but actually, you can hack your code and you can.
It's like
I say, you've got.
Yeah. He goes into that game and you're like, well, this guy is going to,
and
he just unlocks the whole game.
Yeah, it just unlocks the thing. Yeah, exactly. Or like, there's paywalls, so you can only get it if you're a full timer. If you're a platinum level full timer, you can unlock this thing. But if you're only somebody that pays to play the game and blah 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 in the real world, and you have to work to then do it, so like you can't. And like if all especially in something like that, if something's made in a computer, then it can do anything that essentially a computer could do. So you could work in that world as like a computer program or something. So you might as well be like, well, there's no point in paying for my apartment. I just sleep in and eat and shit. I might as well be in here all the time. I get paid the same amount, but I don't have to pay for anything other than, you don't have to pay for food or energy bars or whatever. It could easily convince people. Or at least, we could, if we're,
on the road to the Matrix, it'll basically be, you may as well just be in a bio bath, and just in the Matrix constantly.
Well, I think it would just be like, say, you upload your brain at some point in your life. Maybe you have to live till you're 16, and your whole, education, your training is just about how to live in this universe. And then when you get in there, everything you ever need to know is downloaded into your head, like, all your GCSEs and A levels and shit. Imagine just download into your head. And
so life, the real world, just becomes a tutorial, kind of like, and then you go into that, and like, if the human civilization could exist another 1,000 years, you'd be able to go in there and talk to like Bill Gates or Elon Musk or someone like, some genius, who uploaded before they died, and they basically are immortal in there now.
And then also you could have like NPC type characters that were like, they studied all the works of Shakespeare, and they created a character that is Shakespeare. Through all these knowledge, or like
Pythagoras.
Pythagoras, or anybody. Yeah, you could just go meet these people, and it's like, the further back in time you go, the less realistic it is. The more it's more like please ask me a question. Sorry, I don't understand that question. Whereas you get to somebody like, like if Elon Musk was in there and he died in real life, so it was just like his consciousness. There's so much like media about him. There's so many things about him. It'd just be like talking to him. There'd be so many.
It'd be a template of his consciousness, though. So
exactly.
Whereas someone like, obviously, like Pythagoras would never have been scanned.
Yeah.
They just had everything that was written or he wrote, So they just have like kind of be a construct of him, just a.
Yeah. Well, what if it was like, what's his name? Stephen Hawking. Like Stephen Hawking, there's enough media about him that you could probably create a realistic construct of him without it being him. Whereas Elon Musk, you could have him.
A record of everything Stephen Hawking's ever typed on his little computer.
Well, can you imagine? Not only that, but I'm guessing there's recording. I'm guessing he probably recorded himself. Like a lot of scientists and stuff will record themselves on dictaphones and whatever. He obviously wouldn't necessarily have to record himself because he was a super genius. But I'm sure other people are recording. I'm guessing like every time he spoke, people were in awe. So there'd been 1,000 files, and like if somebody said, right, I'm going to create a AI of Stephen Hawking, and anybody that's ever known him or ever met him or ever has any recordings of him, bring it to me, and it'll make a more realistic version of him. I'm sure thousands of people would come out and be like, yeah, I've got this, and I've got this video, and I've got this that he wrote, and well, maybe not wrote, that he thought, and then winked at his screen, So yeah, I don't know. How do we start this conversation?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, the Oasis. Do I think someone's alive now that will live forever? No. That's what I meant to say. No, okay. No, I don't think so. Maybe,
that's the quick answer, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe. No, but maybe. I would believe it if it happened, but I do think like we'll live to see people with an average, like a good age of 100. Like I think we'll live. Like I think our generation potentially our generation, but I guess there's a lot of smokers and rebels and drinkers and stuff. But I think like within our lifetime, there'll be more occurrences of people living over 100, and I think like will increase the age of like the oldest person in the world potentially. But again, that might be the exact opposite of what happens, because it might be like, you know, obesity and shit like that, you know, obesity and food supplements, and, you know, like the fact that there's so much more pollution and shit like that in the universe, that actually it might be we're the first generation. I think actually it is said that we're meant to be the first generation that's living less than our predecessors. I saw something about that today. It might have been we're less healthy than our predecessors generally, because I think like the case of obesity, especially in America and stuff like that, the cases of obesity are just insane. Whereas obviously like the previous generation was like coming off the back of the war.
The previous generations had jobs like factories and things. We work in offices a lot of the time and have shit jobs like that majority.
Plus, you know, within the last 60, 70 years, there's been the invention of fast food and $2 burgers and shit like that. So, you know, there's a lot of crap out there as well, which they didn't have in, you know, even in our parents' generation. I don't remember eating at McDonald's on a regular basis or anything, whereas some kids will be raised literally with McDonald's every day, other than this 3 months. There'll be people like Jones in from McDonald's.
I wonder what, this is it, right? If you think about what would the population of the Earth be? I wonder, has anyone ever calculated it? If everyone who, how would you work it out? Everyone who hadn't died in like a war, you know, like all the people who died in like World War One, say, or World War Two, like if they hadn't died if like the wars hadn't happened.
Right, yeah.
Like what the world population would be if those people had all, you potentially say, okay, well those people, let's say we give them all 2 children, you know, and then those children have 2 children, you know, it's like the world's population.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone that's alive now probably wouldn't be alive because they'd all be different people. Certain people wouldn't have met other people, and you know, like people that would have been like their husband went to war and
let's say
died.
You could just separate all those people out and put them on an island somewhere, and they all and like how many people would they create, and then add them to the already existing world population?
Oh, millions! I would probably be near 10 billion or something. I think it would be fucking ridiculous numbers. It'd be insane.
So imagine if they hadn't have had those wars, then, you know.
But would it have, like, the world would be a different place? Because that's what I mean. It's like if all them people hadn't died, then people that were born might not have been born because, you know, someone would be with someone else, or, you know, if someone's first son died in war, they might have had a second son to make up for the loss of the first son. You know what I mean? Like, I think the world would still be roughly along the same lines, but also you've got to think about how, like, the science and industry and stuff would have been completely different. You know, like if World War I and II and Vietnam, say, like the big ones for the last from like the early 20th century, if none of those had happened, then, you know, like aeroplanes would be different, and, you know, mustard gas and stuff wouldn't have been like, they wouldn't be working on that necessarily. But then I guess a different war would have happened. But let's say, like, you know, none of the wars happened, which means, like, you know, the Iraq war probably wouldn't have happened because America wouldn't have been all like,
war's a thing that's not allowed.
Let's go to Iraq.
In this universe.
Say again.
War's a thing that's
not no war at all
in this universe.
Yeah, in which case I think we'd be a very, very different place. But then you've got to think, like, if World War II hadn't happened and Hitler hadn't risen up and hadn't explored like rockets and stuff, we wouldn't have had nuclear power. We wouldn't have had Von Braun ever created the rockets, which then sent people to the moon. You know, would the whole space race have happened? Would we have just would it become more of a utopia? Would it become less so? Because it's like we're in the Industrial Revolution. You know what I mean? Like it's like we're part of like this kind of
You know, eventually.
So I don't know if it necessarily would have been a good thing.
What we know about physics and what we know, you know, and then you go
exactly,
back, and it affects like maritime ability. You know, it's like you wouldn't have had advances in ships and stuff over in if it wasn't for
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
wars.
And
And
it
all
wouldn't
this.
have had we wouldn't necessarily have advances in human rights in the same way that we do now, because like a lot of women went to work in the factories and went to war and stuff, and helped in whatever way, and how that develops like their role in society, and the fact they held the country up while the men went to war, and they actually were seen appreciated more afterwards, and then the women were like, actually, fuck you guys, we can do it by ourselves anyway. We did it when you were there away. We're going to continue to do it. Like how
And
like
then
human
the men
rights might
went,
have
yeah,
evolved.
okay, but we'll still keep you fucking as a secondary citizen.
Yeah, well, even even like
Secretly.
like race and stuff like that would have been different. Like if stuff like that, because obviously again World War II there was whole platoons of African Americans, Africans, let's say African origin people, black people, and
African man.
say again.
African man.
African man, yeah, just those people that fought alongside white people that would then maybe have changed a different opinion. So when the world went back to normal, they were actually like, actually, no, he's fine for me. And maybe there was like, there was more of an acceptance for the people that fought for the Allies, and like I say, but also the fact that this terrible, all the terrible things that happened. Maybe people look back and are actually like, we can't be dickheads. We are actually one planet. There was definitely a move for like we are, and the way a lot of like the conspiracy stuff talks about how when they came back they weren't about like being controlled by the state, and how like actually people took back some of the power. Would that have all happened, or would it have been like
Yeah. Imagine if
because
every war.
without sides, yeah.
Imagine if every war that ever happened, going back all the way through history, was just solved by whoever had the problem, like whichever king or leader. They just had a fist fight with the other king and leader, and they just punched it out until.
So we're just led by fucking UFC fighters. Just every country's just got got fucking Brock Lesnar just rocking in America, but like, come over here and kick my ass, then, bitch. All these fucking like super steroid freak, born to be these warrior type, super fucking dudes.
No, they're not allowed to train. They have to learn. They have to just constantly be leaders. They have to do whatever they do, like be leaders and learn information and do all these things, but they're not allowed to train at all for fights. And then they have to have a gay shit fist fight.
Well, it'd be better if they didn't even fight, but like whichever country was being invaded or being like suppressed got to choose a game to play against the other one. And if the other one beat them, then they get their way, and they so it could be a fight, it could be a chess match, it could be like a game of Scrabble, it could be meditation, it could be anything, whatever the country wants, but you have to do their thing in order to win over on them. Have like a competition. Yeah, that would make the world insane. That'd be the craziest fucking weird political. Nobody would ever want to start a war as well, so they'd never have that danger of somebody being like,
what are we playing?
I think
Risk?
it'd be terrible.
We're playing Risk?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
How does this exist?
For the
How does this exist in this universe?
Yeah. Yeah, Risk, yeah. How are we playing battleships? What's a battleship? Yeah. I don't think that. I can't see how that universe could happen, because it just at some point there has to be cavemen going, I throw stone over there, you throw stone over there.
See, this is it. I think initially the idea is it's like you could talk everything out and just have that, but then when you get to the point where people just go, okay, well that was the decision, so you people have to leave. And they go, well, we're all fucking like much bigger than you and got swords, so we may as well just kill you all instead. And then it's a war.
Yeah,
so it's like no one ever agrees to that's war.
There's also times when both sides are either wrong or both sides are right, and so like they could talk about all day and go, well, I don't believe in them, I don't believe in that religion, or I don't believe in this, and they're like, well, we do believe in this, like we can't have a compromise. They're like, no, this has to be an all Christian state or an all Muslim state or an all Buddhist Jedi state. And so, they'd have to be like, well, I guess we have to kill you then. I think war is in some ways inevitable, but I do think there's also potential for in the future to have less wars. I think there's definitely, but again, this goes back to us choosing sides of Earth.
Wait, would war exist if everyone who was born was immortal and couldn't be killed in any way?
Oh,
would war exist?
I think war would exist. I think you definitely have more one-on-one battles.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a case of like prison would be a much more of a hell. It'd be like just in a cell, like not even a cell, like a box.
You just
You're like a
bury
coffin.
someone.
Just bury someone. Yeah, you just like that's how people take over. They'd fight one on one, and whoever lost the fight in whatever way, however you could. If they're like all juggernaut, then I don't know how that'd work. But you know, if there was still potential to beat somebody, even if you couldn't like kill them,
they're all.
you can still hold them on the ground and tie them up.
They're all
like,
Superman.
heels.
Let's just say they're all Superman. Everyone's a Superman.
Yeah.
What's war look like then? Or not Superman, but like let's say, what's a good example? Like, you know, someone who's all like Luke Cage. Everyone's Luke Cage, so we haven't got we can't like shoot lasers doing it, it's stupid, but we're all invincible and relatively strong.
Right. Yeah.
No matter what your body shape is or size, doesn't matter. That's what you are.
I think a lot of stuff. I mean, like extreme sports would be insane because you just no parachute jumps.
I don't think competition would be a thing.
I think competition, yeah.
If everyone was invincible and had the same power, you know, at strength and speed.
I suppose it'd be about technique after that, though, wouldn't it? Like if me and you were exactly the same height, speed, and everything like that, and then I said, right, but I've studied 20 years of jiu-jitsu, and it'd be like, you know, I can beat you in this thing, even though we started like everyone was started with the same player, but yeah, it'd be your knowledge. It'd be like Skyrim. Everyone starts at the same point in Skyrim, but it's your progression through it that gets you there. And I'm sure, like my character was a little stealthy ninja dude. You know, what I mean, like, he was super. By the end of it, he was god powered, but he was a god powered ninja dude. Whereas someone else might do a god powered warrior class.
So individuals would come down to what they studied. So they go, I want to spend my entire first, like, or however long they've been alive. Everyone's immortal, let's say. So the oldest people would have studied fucking, you know, for example, like, you know, fucking sword fighting and blah, 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 and, you know, jiu-jitsu and various other things. So that all of a sudden they'd have all these knowledge sets of abilities, not just with things like that. They'd be artists, there'd be all sorts of things. They'd have all these abilities that they'd learn how to do over their immortal lifespan.
Yeah.
And so that would determine how they were better than the person who was, you know, 20 years old and hadn't studied anything but was still immortal.
Yeah, exactly.
And invincible and everything.
Yeah, because it's great being immortal.
That would be the baseline of the society, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what it would be age. So like somebody that was like Plato would be like a badass at everything. He'd be like the greatest philosopher. He's gone deep into ayahuasca, and he's just like spent 1,000 years just tripping his balls off and having sex with little boys. Thinking. Yeah. And then someone would come up to him and be like, "Yo, son, what's up, cuz?" And he'd be like, "Actually, nothing is up. The sky is a metaphor." And you'd be like, "Oh, he's old," you know. So I think it would be that sort of thing.
And he'd also smash you with like jiu-jitsu or something that he'd been training.
He could just be like, he'd have other people that follow him that he's just like smash them guys, because you know that would be like follow it. It'd be like if you had a million years to live, you'd follow every guru.
It would come down. Whoever was in charge would not only come down to whoever was just more knowledgeable, but it would come down to whoever who believed in you the most. So it would be how many people followed you and believed in you.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would mean,
like it is now.
but it would be like you'd have an army then of people with abilities and knowledge. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Would war be a thing? Because going back to that, would war be a thing because there'd be no concept of, you know, you couldn't kill anyone, so there'd be no finality to any argument through conflict.
I think there would potentially become like going into that world with the mind that I have now, there could be conflict because people would do things. If an infinity of life, the worst people would do the worst things for an infinity amount of time. You know, there'd still be.
So would you.
There'd still be every other crime.
So would the good people.
But that's the thing. It's like given enough time. You know, somebody that spent their whole life and they've read every book, or you know, that's all they do is read. At some point, they'd be like, you know, it's like, oh, let's.
The thing is, right? The evil people would but eventually, right? The evil people. Let's say it started now, and everyone was immortal. In 1 billion years, all the evil people would have started out raping and killing, or trying to kill and doing all the awful shit. And then eventually, the evil people would be good because they'd just eventually try good because they had infinity to go, and then all the good people would have started off good and eventually become evil because they'd just be trying the evil shit.
Yeah, I think we'd have super messed up weird worlds where anything is viable.
So this
I
may I
think it would
thought.
get to a point where that.
So if you had like a race, you'd have people.
I don't think people would have relationships. I don't think people would like you could have 100 years with someone and then you'd be like, actually, I'm deciding.
You'd only do it for procreation, But then, what would procreation be? Because you wouldn't. If everyone
I don't think you just do it for procreation. I think you would have love, but love would be like
wait.
different.
If everyone who'd ever existed still existed,
Yeah.
somehow, and we just expanded out into the universe and other planets and all this, then there'd be no rush to create new people, kind of. It would just be something
100%. Yeah, totally.
you do maybe once or twice in your infinite fucking lifespan. You might create 2 fucking new people,
Yeah, it might be some sort of responsibility you'd have to take because I don't think money would be a thing anymore because you can't.
Maybe it's just something you have to do within the first 20 years of existence. You have to you meet someone young as well, another 20-year-old, you have sex and have a baby, and then you carry on with your infinite lifespan, and you raise them to the point where and then they go off to the world.
So I lost you, and then you come in, and he's still talking. Keep going.
What?
Yeah, that's fine.
What?
I just you went off, and I had to call you back, and then you came in and you carry on talking.
I'm still talking.
It's great. I do it every time.
Don't worry, you've done that several times to me.
A conversation. I just keep talking for like 20 minutes, and then I'm like, where'd he go? Oh well.
Yeah, no.
Keep talking.
Where did I stop? Where did we stop?
I heard if everyone had been existed, then you wouldn't have people having babies. You might only do it once or twice, and then I said maybe money wouldn't be a thing anymore because and then it cut out, and you were like, yeah, actually, and then just cut out, and I'm like, hello.
That was it. I was saying if people didn't exist, would you have children? Maybe it's something you'd do straight away, or you'd only have 2 children. Oh, we already said that, didn't we? It was like we're saying, would you get 2 20-year-olds and say, right, have a baby, and then you can fucking raise that kid? And then...
No, because I think that would add up too quickly. I think it'd make more sense if you have it at like at your 1000th birthday, you get the opportunity to have a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that you're old enough that there's enough people that are old enough that you can then have a structure to do it, and each because I'm guessing or you'd be in like you are years in school. Like from 900 to 1000 on the 5th of May in 2632, then they're allowed. They get their pass, like their driver's license, to have a baby. But yeah, there'd be people. Yeah, I think it would be a completely different, similar world. I think it would. I mean, would be way more advanced than we are now if everyone that ever lived.
Because
still live. Because we'd have all the history of humanity, and also like language would evolve to something completely different. Because as people spread across the world, we'd be as spread across the world as anybody. Like at this point, 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, when Jesus was born, we'd be as spread across the population of the planet as we are now, because you'd have to.
Would writing
the first 5,000 years?
Would writing
no one ever died.
Be a thing?
I think by then we'd probably. I think we'd I think if now, if we jumped into that world as of May 2020, I think we'd already be in spaceships. I think.
No. I mean, in a universe where everyone's immortal.
Yeah. Would you have to write it down?
Would they write anything down ever?
Yeah, it depends if you've got the memory of an immortal memory, like an untouched, perfect memory, which would be terrible. I think that would be an awful thing to have for 10,000 millennia. I wonder what happened to that person I knew 5,000 years ago. You know what I mean? It'd be like, I think you would have to write stuff down in order to record some stuff, and I don't know. This is quite a deep world to throw myself into.
I
2
want
hours
the
into a
answers, Chris.
conversation.
Why don't you give me the
Like,
fucking
I don't
answers to these
think so.
questions?
I think writing. I think if we still had memories, like better memories than we have now, but still not perfect memories, so that we'd, do it, then I don't think. I think we would have to write stuff down in order to maintain it. But because we could never be wiped out, then the person that knew it at the time would always be alive, and so yeah. I mean, would you have people that are like a billion, like 1,000 years old that have already got like senile dementia or something, and then they're just completely broken down, but for the rest of time they still exist?
No, I
Would there
think
be
they
would
never
there be
lose
just
their
like
memory.
so they never lose their memory? They've got it as if like
You never.
I think. Let's say that in this world they've already got the Elon Musk super brain,
You're immortal.
and that helps
You're
them store
invincible,
it. So
which means your memories are invincible, which means nothing degrades in you. Your cells never degrade.
yeah, but that's terrible because you wouldn't be able to let anything go because everything would be like it was yesterday. So any like tragedy in your life, like mental or like, I suppose there's no death though, is there?
That would be the
So
challenge.
everything is less important.
That's what I mean. No one ever dies, so there's nothing ever really bad happens.
Whoever dies, if you lose a job, you've probably lost 1,000 jobs. If you probably
What's
just
the
like, okay, I'll
worst
do
thing
something
that could
different for the
happen
next,
to those people is they have an argument and fall out with someone.
or get lost in space. I was thinking if you're lost in space,
Yeah.
like you're in space and you're just
Somehow
adrift, that would
ejected
be
from the planet's
for
surface
eternity.
into
Yeah,
space.
yeah. Or like buried in a hole, like
Mm.
like you got like an avalanche and they couldn't get you out. That'd be the only times where realistically
What
in
would
the
be the
universe with a perfect
reasons
memory.
it would bury someone in a hole? It would be
Well,
such a
like there
crime.
was there was an avalanche. There was an avalanche.
Right,
There was an
yeah.
avalanche, and you
Right.
got buried in a hole. Or like that you went underwater diving and you got lost and your tank went out.
You're super strong and
Jeez.
powerful, so you just just burst out. And
Are you super strong as well? I thought you were just a
well,
normal person but immortal.
well, I thought you were like Luke Cage. I mean, what can he?
Oh, right,
What
well,
can
like he's
well, here
got
we go.
like
If you
near impenetrable skin.
Well, maybe if you were indestructible, like, then wouldn't your muscles be indestructible under the surface? Like, or are we just talking about impenetrable skin? Because I'm
But
thinking,
even if your muscles were indestructible, that doesn't mean you could lift more than your muscles were capable of lifting. But potentially over time, you could build to lift. I don't know. Like if
no,
you
but
were
you
just
wouldn't be
pushing
able to
against a
build your
rock for like
muscles
1,000 years, you build you must
because your muscles get
they wouldn't
damaged
tear
and
in order to
repair.
grow.
Yeah, so they don't do that, which means there'd be no limit to your tensile strength because there's no point where like your muscles aren't strong enough to fucking give in because they're indestructible. So technically, your strength
So
would be
whatever you
infinite, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but if my arm was like indestructible and I pushed my arm into a rock, the rock wouldn't necessarily break because I can't build the force behind it, and I can't build the force behind it due to weight and balance and stuff like that. I suppose if your bones never break, then
That's it. But if
eventually,
you were
I just
completely
don't know if you could push
indestructible,
it.
then as an object, then like with
But
infinite.
what I mean though, like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
force and
But
strength and
like,
momentum and
say I had a sledgehammer and I just held it against the wall and pushed, and the wall was made of wood. That wall is weaker than the sledgehammer, but the sledgehammer wouldn't necessarily be able to do
I
it
suppose
without a swing behind it.
this is a physics question, isn't it? Really, you could say to a physicist, right? If I had a completely indestructible object that was as dense as any object could be,
Yeah.
what's the potential level of destruction if that connected with any object on this planet? You know, like like a rock or a chair or something,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and how much force would be required to utterly destroy the object it was touching? Like how much?
Because if you think of it that way, it's like, what if you sat down? Your chair just
I know, yeah,
explodes
this is what I mean.
beneath you.
It's
You're
so
lying on a
flippant.
bed, like I don't know, like I still
These
think you
people
still have
would
to
have
be like
chairs
you still
made
have
of
to
fucking
work
like
within.
mountains. Like,
Yeah, like it's like everyone walks, they're just sinking into the ground as they walk, and then just fall through the core of the earth and out into space. It's like shit, you're just stuck in the core of the earth for eternity.
I've
just
got to
as
be honest,
boring
this
as
whole
fire.
world's starting to unravel.
It's starting to fall apart, isn't it? It's starting to fall apart. I don't think.
What
I
if they
don't think
jump
you're
slightly? They
not
would just
vision. I don't
leave
think you. I
the
don't think
planet's
you're
surface.
vision where you're like you can create like density in yourself. I think you weigh the same, but your
Okay.
bodies are just adamantium. You know, you're like you
Yeah, all right,
Wolverine.
I
I
accept
think of it
that.
more like
Otherwise, we'd have
Wolverine.
people jumping slightly, and then they'd just like jump into the fucking orbit,
Exactly.
and like
Right.
disappear into
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Because like it would be. Yeah. It would be. I don't think strength would equal like your mass would equal strength. I don't know if that if someone were to create this super being. But yeah, I think of it more like a indestructible like robot, where it's like it's only got a certain amount of force behind it. So
Well,
I
I
think you
suppose
could
its
get buried or
strength
lost in space, or
would only be relative to the structure of that
yeah,
its design. Like, so that however strong a human body could possibly be, if it was like metal, like a robot, you know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it would only.
If you think of like we're all Brock Lesnar, that's why like we're all got the strength of Brock Lesnar, or like whoever fucking
Well, I
Soul
guess we'll
Master.
see it one day if someone creates like the hardest robot ever made. It's like the shape of a human, like,
And they're just
and it's
I
made
don't
of
want to say that.
like adamantium, for example, like and then you say,
Yeah,
okay,
or
how
like that. Yeah,
can that?
Element 115.
Yeah, it's like, can this lift a mountain? It's like it's not going to have the leverage to be able to lift something that's
Yeah,
bigger.
it's like the
Yeah, yeah.
fulcrum, the lever, the base. Yeah, it need all the different things to do it. So yeah, you wouldn't be able to lift the house over your head because the ground wouldn't support your body, and then you'd fall through, and then the house. Yeah, yeah. Let's just say you don't have like you're not
Okay,
like fucking you're not
that's
all Superman, but yeah, you're like a
right.
superhuman, indestructible superhuman. But then, like you say, your muscles would have to be able to be repaired, and so maybe it's more like your external skin is impenetrable, but your internals are like a healing factor that you just heal all the time, so that
Yeah.
you can excrete bile and stuff like that. Your body would still have to run in some sort of way. But you'd have to eat or pee or poop or breathe somehow. Because indestructible.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could get lost in like space. You could get crushed under a mountain. You could get caught under the sea and just be stuck there.
Yeah,
So
but
that would be the only
it's not as bad as
tragedies that
dying.
could really befall you. It's not as bad as dying, but
It'd just be like,
I think being lost in space would be worse than dying. Being lost in space for eternity, just floating around in space, would be
yeah,
worse than
but if
dying.
you had until the end, if you had infinite time until the end of space, let's say I mean, eventually, technically, you've got infinite time, and so eventually, someone's going to find it.
Yeah, but it might be like a billion years in the future, and you come
Yeah,
back
so
and we're like,
what?
oh, we've colonized every planet. And you're like,
So
all right,
what?
what are computer games like now? Is there any good computer games?
Be like, sweet, I've got
Do we
so
still
many
smoke weed?
films to catch up on. Like, this is
Yeah.
awesome.
What was Avengers 12 like?
What
Yeah,
did the Marvel Universe get up to now? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Did they ever
But
remake
also
Game of
stuff
Thrones
like
properly?
entertainment would be less interesting. Or more, like it'd be different because like films would be like you're as powerful as Captain America or Iron Man or Thanos.
Well, I
If
suppose
you're that so
it would be like the, like in Invention of Lying, where they don't have movies, they just have someone telling you things that happened, like in history.
yeah.
Like,
Well, I
it would
think it'd
be
be
kind of
it'd
like
be like
that.
storytellers. Yeah. I
Stories would
think
be like
films would
that.
probably be like aspects of certain people's lives. So your story would be
You'd
like it's
have the
a
person, they turn up and they
10-hour
go,
film of you floating in
"Here
space and
we've
then being
got."
found by humans.
Well, you'd have like the film of Abraham Lincoln, and it would just be Abraham Lincoln sitting there telling you what happened.
Acting it out with all the other people
It's
who were
so I
there.
was fucking
And this
standing
guy
here,
tried
and
to
this
shoot
guy
me, but he
shot me in the back
forgot.
of the head.
I'm immortal.
And he forgot everyone's immortal. He's a fucking idiot. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know where he got the gun from. I don't know
fucking
what a
moron.
gun is. It's the first time I'd ever seen a gun. Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I don't think I want to live in this world of immortality. Maybe for like, I think 1,000 years is the maximum I'd want to be alive. I think, or like 100 years at a time, but I only get brought out of stasis every 10,000 years.
That'd be interesting.
That'd be cooler.
That'd be very good.
Like you get to live 100 years at a time, but
That's like the
like
whole
you just get to jump.
whole vampire thing where they like
Yeah,
hibernate.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Every fucking
I
10,000
think I could
years. I'll just go.
I could survive immortality like that because then you get to see like an update and everything. You don't have to wait for anything. You just go out. It's like you're in Viking times, boom, and then 1,000 years later you get brought out again and you're in fucking
I think I'd wait until
Dark
at least we
Ages.
got to this era and then say, right, I'm going to hibernate now. So when I wake up in the future, at least I can watch stuff and catch up.
Now
Whereas-
would be a perfect time to hibernate.
because
I
if I'd
think. I think,
hibernated
throughout our life, I think now would be a good time to hibernate.
like if I'd hibernated at the end of Egypt or something and then woke up now, I'd be like, what the fuck has happened? And I've got no idea. I've just got to read history, all this shit that they think happened.
also think that that'll happen again in another 1,000 years. If you woke up in 1,000 years, you'd be like, I don't recognize any of this.
Yeah.
I'm a moron. Like, what is like? How's his kid floating? You know, like I mean, hoverboards will definitely exist in 1,000 years if we haven't destroyed ourselves.
Actually, if you
No.
just if you
Or they won't, or they will have been. They will have existed, but they no longer. No one uses them anymore. They're stupid.
imagine they could just encase you in like an egg, a metal egg thing, and just shoot you into like the center of the earth, and you stay there, and it just freezes. It just like just. I don't know why they're doing that. You could just be anywhere.
In space, they could just do it in space.
You know what? Yeah, they just put you in. Yeah, all right, that's much better. They just freeze you and put you in space.
That makes more sense than shooting you into the earth. Like, why? Why do you do that?
They shoot you at the moon.
Like a really big operation to drill a hole,
right, they
throw
build,
you in it, and then bury you.
what they do is they
dig you out.
They get Jupiter. They drag at Jupiter. They somehow build this thing to drag Jupiter over here, and then they put you inside Jupiter. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Put you in an egg
So
in
yeah, you
space.
get shot in space.
And
Yeah.
And then I've completely forgotten. What the fuck? No.
And then
It's
you
like-
get woken up every 1,000
yeah,
years or
and
something.
then- yeah, so you get woken up in like what, 6, 7, 8,000 years, something like that. And it's just
Yeah.
Egypt again, and you'd be like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Who the fuck woke you up? That's the question I want to ask. Just some good dude that's like doing Sanskrit. He
You'd
finds a little
literally-
device. He's like, "What's this button doing?" You just this part comes down. You're like, "What year is it?" And they're like, it's Egypt." And there's like, "This Sphinx looks really old." I'm like, "Yeah, it's like
Imagine, and
2
it's like
million
a
years
loop,
old.
and like
It's a loop."
it just
Could
restarts.
happen.
Yeah, and it's like by that time the pyramids will be gone, the original ones, and so they just built new ones. And,
Yeah,
and
just built
the
some
actual
pyramids, yeah.
the actual pyramids of that era are like the remnants of like the Pentagon and fucking weird shit and skyscrapers and stuff that was left from our
Oh,
civilization.
it's made of just pure metal. It's like just metal fucking
Yeah,
pyramids.
like
yeah.
Like the Golden Gate Bridge, they just go, look at this mad thing that some civilization that came before us built.
Yeah.
Don't know what it was built of. We've never seen this metal, this weird. We don't even know it's called metal. I've just invented that word right now.
Well, I mean, if it was, I think they say like if humans left Earth now, within I think it was something like 100,000 years, there would be no sign of us other than maybe the pyramids. Like that'd be like the Sphinx would probably be the only thing, and it'd be obviously fucked. But I
Something
think
like
that'd
that.
be the only thing that was left.
They reckon we
Or like the Roman stone. I think like they would find Roman and
Really,
some of the
metal?
like the
Metal.
some of the old school
I
shit.
suppose the thing with metal, it erodes and like it could be eaten by rust and stuff, so it could get to the
Yeah.
point where it disintegrates.
Just turns to dust, yeah, exactly.
back
It goes
down
back
to
into
its
the earth
original
and
elements,
starts to store up and creates like
So
like you say.
yeah, and they reckon like if we would just abandon the city, I mean, the vegetation would just take over the city within like fucking
100%, yeah.
10 years.
I've seen I Am Legend.
Something.
Yeah,
Oh,
it wouldn't
yeah,
take that long. I had to fucking like take moss off my boat every
Yeah.
2 months. Mate. If I don't walk past it, I get like 25 spiders.
Well,
back, so yeah.
if my back
It won't take
garden
long.
was anything to go by in that house, it's like
Yeah,
fucking, it doesn't take
right.
long at all.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. You can do it, and then within a month, you're like, this needs a fucking mow. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think the world would very quickly take up everything, and yeah, it'd be fucked up. Have you seen that Kevin Hart is on Joe Rogan? It came on 2 hours ago.
All right.
It's a 2-hour one. Yeah, I'm going to watch that later. That's good. Oh, tomorrow.
Good
That'll be
to
more like
watch.
that. And there's a new Two Bears as well, so that's tomorrow's watching, taken care of, which is nice because the last couple of days have been a bit dry. He doesn't tend to do much over the weekend. There's not a lot of podcasts over the
I
weekend.
caught up on the community ones. I watched.
They're good, aren't they?
Table
I've
Read
really
as well.
enjoyed them.
It's quite good.
Yeah, I watched the table read and the little interview thing afterwards. I just want to hang out with them. They're honestly people I want to hang out with. That's the thing. I watch all that stuff. I'm like, I want to hang out with these people. They look like fun, man.
I do
Making
find
jokes and talking shit.
running joke of every time they start and Chang's like fucking hello, welcome, and Giles just interrupts him every single time. Pretty much, it's just a
It's like
great,
you're doing really well. It's like, were you not doing it? Yeah.
it's just a great
Well, it's
gag.
like I said, that the
yeah,
Two Bears one.
right,
He starts
yeah.
every one and he's like, and that's why you're not, and that's why you don't say the N word. You know, like, you say something like that where it's just like as if they've had a conversation, but it's
Yeah.
always it starts like as it goes live. He always says something quite amusing. I like that, yeah. But no, I do think it's quite interesting how they do that.
Yeah, that was a Who thought we'd have ended that mental conversation about all these different things?
with there's a new podcast. Oh,
It's a
good.
random thing.
Yeah.
Advert for Bill Burr podcast.
For Bill Burr's Two Bears One Cave and Joe Rogan's podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's just it just caught my eye as I was just flicking through YouTube there. But yeah, I mean, we've gone deep into aliens today. This podcast this is like all aliens all the time. This podcast, aliens, the universe, and Corona. A little bit of Corona, and how Corona could potentially tie into aliens. How it could be like their smoke screen, so that that this is their red herring for the introduction of aliens. I would love, I think I have to set my sights lower as I get older, because I get closer to like my death and more into the future, and less of the things that were supposedly going to happen in the future have happened. Like, we're past Blade Runner, we're past all of the fucking Back to the Future and Total Recall. We're past all that time.
They were already doing stuff in space in Star Trek at this point, surely, in the history of Star Trek. I don't know.
I'd imagine so. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I can't remember when Zephyr Cochrane does warp speed, but I think that's maybe in the 2100s. But yeah, they were definitely doing something. Yeah, we can look that up. That's doable. But yeah, I do think I've had to lower my my expectations of the future. But in the last year, I would say there has been some fast developments with stuff. I mean, on here from 2 days ago, there's a SpaceX and NASA attempting first manned space flight in a decade. So that's quite interesting. With the SpaceX fucking Dragon or whatever the fuck it's called. Yeah, Dragon, which is the coolest name for a spaceship. That's what spaceships should be called.
This is it.
It should have cool fucking names like spaceships.
I mean, I know NASA have some...
They're named after boats and stuff, but yeah.
NASA have, the Challenger and things like that. I mean, some of the decent names, but it's like, why aren't they called fucking hardcore things like Dragon there? That's a good one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Well, it's the SpaceX, isn't it? It's like everything about SpaceX is just like let's do it like the old sci-fi movies. I feel like Elon Musk must have at least a little bit of like a sci-fi side to him, just to be the fact that he's doing space stuff. I think any physicist must have got into physics because they like Star Trek. That's my way in. So I assume that's how everybody got into the idea of physics and stuff. So. But yeah, I feel like in this last year with Elon Musk and with some of the technologies kind of catching up in a bit different way, and we're trying to explore some places and go out and do some shit. So there might be a move, but I don't think we're going to be like Firefly by the time I die, or Star Trek. I don't think we're going to have our own spaceships, which is unfortunate.
That's what's annoying.
I've always wanted my own ship. That's why I bought a boat, because it was the first step to buying a spaceship, or to having my own spaceship and having a crew and just living on a spaceship, doing smuggling or delivering stuff, or because that's all I need. It doesn't have to be flying around in the Enterprise destroying fucking battle cruisers.
A ragtag
it could just
ship
be a spaceship, ragtag ship, just doing stuff, living a life, going to planets, flying to a spaceport.
Yeah. I think that's what annoys me. I think is as I got older, is that it just became obvious that something like that would never happen in my lifetime. And
it's unfortunately it's not. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get there.
So unless, it's not. There's no unless about it. It's the only
unless aliens.
Unless aliens. Well, that's the only change that'll bring it. Anything.
Yeah. Unless we've already got that, and they say, actually, guys, there is we're in contact with another thing. But that's what I mean. It's even with the alien thing, I don't think we're in contact with a race and stuff like that. I don't think it goes that far. I think we've just found some shit that we don't understand. That's what it feels more like. We just found some shit and we don't know what it does. We can fly around and stuff. We don't know where it came from or who made it, or
really wish there was something like kind of G1. Where it's all going on in the background in Stargate, and it's they've got their own starships and stuff, but it's all secret and there's things going on.
Yeah.
I'd love to just find out that it wouldn't bother me at all if they just were look, this is what's been going on and this is why we've been keeping it secret, because all the governments of the world have had an involvement in this fucking, and it's
Well,
been
we can
going on
get
for
pretty.
years.
This goes pretty deep into like the tin hat conspiracy type stuff.
Yeah, and all
But
that
there was a dude whose name I can't
bizarre
remember,
stuff.
who was talked about the fact that when he was younger, his dad was in a time travel program with the American government and stuff. And he's done talks all around the world, and he's like some of the stuff's been proven right. And his dad did work in like secret military bases and shit. But he said that he went to like Mars through like a portal in like fucking Texas or something. So there is stuff that like is deep down the rabbit hole, crazy. Like it's one of them ones where you kind of go, okay, but he's got some sort of
Yeah, I think I've heard that. I can't remember
reputation
his
where it
name.
makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like it sort of makes sense, and you can kind of prove some bits of it, which is weird. The Bob Lazar stuff, I believe, because it's like even the way he talks and like the evidence behind it, and the fact that he said stuff in the 70s, like the element 115, they were like, this doesn't exist, it can't
That's the
exist
thing
on
that got
the
me.
table.
It's just the fact
And they're now like, oh, it does
knew
exist.
about that before it does exist. Like
Yeah,
in
100%.
actors,
Like I say, I believe 100% that he believes what he says, and I believe 100% that some of the information is true. The rest, the stuff I can't, like the stuff that he can't prove, I'm a bit like, because he can't prove it. But at the same time, everything else he said is true. You know, what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of like if somebody tells you 100 truths and then says this one might be true, but I can't prove it. You're kind of like, well, you've never lied to me yet. So it's one of them sort of. And again, it supports my bias that I want aliens to exist and stuff.
Or
But
is it
if
a
they,
perfectly constructed story? I don't know, but whatever. Go on.
yeah, but yeah, and his delivery is very similar to the way it was in the
Anyway,
70s. But the fact that
stay
his
in your
life
train
has
of
been
thought,
like,
yeah.
the fact that his life has been like fucked up because of it kind of makes it more believable. But yeah, there is some crazy shit when talk about that stuff, and I do believe that I'm sure there's stuff that we haven't even like theorized about when we're talking about random crazy time travel superhuman shit that is true, that is probably more insane than that. There's definitely probably there's almost definitely stuff in the world that, like, if they told us, we'd be like, that can't be true. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like when
I want to know that shit. I
where
want to
stuff that
hear
we
it.
can believe that isn't true. You know, there's probably stuff like if someone said aliens existed, I'd believe it. But if someone said, well, aliens exist, but actually they live under the water and they're the lizard men and stuff, I'd be like, what? That
Yeah,
can't,
if it
like,
gets
that's
really
the
deep
truth.
like that, I'd be like,
You
huh?
know? Yeah, exactly. Like if that was the truth, and like actually, you know, like all the politicians are lizard men, and they're, you know, like the really weird
The thing is, though,
conspiracy
just on
stuff,
that
the stuff
note,
where you're like, is that true?
that is the next step, though. Is it's like, yeah, aliens exist, and then we've got to now explain or describe what they are, and can we accept it?
Yeah, yeah. And if they say aliens definitely exist and we've known for 70 years, I'm like, well, how much have you known? Like, have you known that they exist because you found a spaceship once, or and was that spaceship 1,000 years old, or was it brand new, or did it crash land? If it crash land, was there
I
something
want
inside it?
details.
You know, like it's like how much detail and like how many cases? Like actually, there's 10,000 cases, and they're all like some of them are they saw a UFO and they didn't know what it was, or that fighter pilot one. Like
Yeah.
that is the most watered down alien truth that you can ever see. Like the government went, yeah, look, there's an alien spaceship. Like the 10,000 videos you've seen on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, this one's definitely real, and you're like, yeah, but what about the alien autopsies? You know, it's like, are they real? You know, like how much of it? How deep does it go? So yeah, it's
Yeah,
one of them things where I'm
if,
sure there's some craziness.
yeah, because how many of them are like, how many of them are like, if the aliens did exist, they go, oh, it's just the saucer type aliens. And you go, well, what about all the other ones? And you know, all the different type of UFOs
Yeah.
that we know. It's like, oh, they're just other races we didn't know about, or are they just we
Well,
don't
what
know?
if they
We
say,
still
like-
don't know what they are.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you listen to Bob Lazar and stuff when they talk about the like the spaceships and stuff they had. It's like that kind of explains Roswell. They had a spaceship which they crashed, like the Americans had a spaceship which they crash landed because they found the spaceship and fucked about with it and crash landed it. Like that makes more sense than it being like came from another planet. But maybe they found it and it was already 1,000 years old. or maybe they found it and it was that crash landing, or maybe they found it a year before that and it crash landed in fucking China or the Antarctic or whatever. And then like, well, if that was in the 70s, what do we know now? What do we have now that was influenced by what you found out then? Like, is that why technology took a big leap, quantum leap forward in the last 30 years? So yeah, it's not like, okay, like if a president says, like if Trump on his last day says, like, the last thing I want to tell you is aliens definitely existed, there'd be 10,000 reporters going, tell us about this thing, tell us about this thing. Like that's another 10 years of question just to find out most of the information, and then it's stuff they're still going to keep top secret. There's also a super race of aliens that attack, like, are against the Galactic Federation. Who knows how deep it would go. So I think that's another thing. It's like they've got to the point now where if they told us, it'd be like they'd have to keep telling us for the rest of time because they've spent 40 years telling us. It's not like I can make one documentary and explain what aliens were if they've known for 50 years.
Yeah, and potentially there could be like, we can't even begin to explain what's going on in the galaxy, and all the different races and all the galactic politics. We can't even people can't even get their heads around the politics on our own planet and the religions and shit. It's like, it's a whole like fucking sci-fi world out there.
Yeah, well, even if they go, we found some spaceships in the 1960s. We found these 9 spaceships, and we studied them since, and we have no idea how they work. We've literally not been able to figure out one thing about them.
9 different versions of different ships, different designs.
Yeah.
They all
different
work
designs,
differently.
all different.
Like,
they all work differently, and literally we have no idea where they came from. Yeah, exactly. Like we found some bodies.
They're the same race. We don't know.
Dissect them. It made no sense whatsoever. Yeah. Like we don't know how long they were here. What if they said that? Like literally, what you know is all we know. Like we only kept it hid because we had no fucking idea what it was, and we still don't.
Then.
That's why we're telling you. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
there's no viable answer,
like,
really.
Yeah, of course it is. Because we expect, conspiracy people expect to have, like, they're hiding all these secrets. What if they have no fucking clue?
Yeah, but that's what
everything else in
that's kind of the only
the world and war and everything.
That's the only viable answer to me. It sort of feels like, well, they would say it if they knew, and because they don't know, what they do know is so fucking weird, and like. They don't know enough that it would just cause people to be afraid. Like you said, like, we found these. It means there's 9 different species of aliens that have visited our planet, and we don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
And they're definitely taking people. That's all we know.
What? Taking people, and we have no idea why or how or where or.
Yeah, this is it. We've got no defense against them. Like, they could just beam into your house and take you whenever they want.
Yeah, all the weird phenomena in the world, all like the grey men and the like the dudes who turn up in hats and stuff, all to do with aliens. We have no idea about any of it.
Different
types. All those watches and stuff. 100%. Yeah, they just turn up. They can look like us. They can do whatever they want. We have no idea how many there are here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if, like, that's.
I'm not sure
could
if
be a
you're an
genuine
alien.
answer. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to tell you whether the person
I
told
could
me
be the only
like,
human left for all I know.
Anybody could. Yeah. Maybe I'm an alien. I just don't know it yet. Maybe we all came here at one point. Nobody has any idea whatsoever. There's
if that was the answer,
stuff with like DNA. There's bits in your DNA where they believe to be like alien. There's bits that are meant to be like,
it's like the junk stuff,
like
unfollowable
something. Yeah. And stuff like that, and like I say, weird animals and shit. They're like, we found all these correlations between things. We have no idea where it came from. Because that would, like I say, that would be a reason not to tell people. Because the people that are already conspiracy people would be like, it's a lie, they know this. And people that don't know would be like, oh my god, there's aliens going to take us and put our bums. So
that genuinely feels like the answer to me.
That could well be the answer. Yeah.
Or unless the alternate one is that they've been told, not to fucking tell anyone by whatever aliens. There is some galactic
by the beings,
galactic council that says, right, now that you know, you're not allowed to tell your people till you stop having fucking wars and talking about religion.
Yeah, because if there was like a super universe out there with loads of other like populated planets and all that thing, they would have a million different ships. They wouldn't all be driving around in the exact same ship. They'd have a million planets with a million different types of ships and stuff like that. And what if it's just like Firefly, where everyone just flies around, and all the people that all the aliens that have landed on Earth are just random
Yeah,
ships that have
they're not
crash
part
landed,
of
or
like
you
they're not
know,
like a federation.
just smugglers and like let's. Yeah,
Just some random
no,
fuckers that
it's
just
more like
landed, huh? Yeah.
yeah, it's just crazy people like in the Expanse. It's just that it's the
So well,
Belters, and they all just come out out
to
to the like
them,
the edges of their universe.
they're just driving a car out around the universe somewhere, like, and then they
Yeah,
just land on a planet, and they're just like, oh, this planet's got people on
because
it. All right.
we're pretty far out in our galaxy.
We're on the edge, yeah. We're not
In
far.
like
We're not in the
yeah,
center.
we're pretty far out from the like galactic core and stuff. So like in the galactic core, you'd expect A, the planets are going to be older, and B, I think. And B,
Mm,
there's going to be a dense population of planets in a Goldilocks area around whatever the, like because obviously as the stars and everything get pulled in, there's a place, I can't remember where I saw it. It might have been on this crazy documentary thing, but there was a place that was like, it was in the center of it was like a supermassive black hole, and all the galaxies around it had been pulled towards it. So it was just like this epic light
mm.
of just like loads of planets that was just like loads of planets and stars being pulled in, and all these planets could be like billions and billions and billions of years old, more older than ours, more than 13 billion years old, like hundreds of billions of years old. They were being pulled towards the center, and the closer they got to the center, the older they were. But obviously all these ancient planets being pulled closer towards each other with their stars burning out and stuff. And I'm like, that's where like you would expect there to be insane civilizations,
Well,
like
yeah,
fucking
that's something I
super
thought.
beings.
Yeah, like on a planet that's like on an ellipsis, getting sucked into a black hole, and it's like its time operates differently. Like its time is slower, you know,
Yeah,
and so
yeah, of
like it's
course, yeah,
warped
yeah.
so that like on the planet their civilizations existed for a billion years now, and when they leave the planet, they've actually only existed for like 10,000 or something, you know.
Yeah.
But they're a
Well, that's
super
the thing. In
advanced.
stuff in space, there's weird shit like that, which is like, oh,
Mm,
this rules on this planet are completely different, or on this area of space, or fucking whatever. Just experience things completely different. And so they have. I also like imagine like with the gravitational pull of a supermassive black hole, what elements would be created, and like the density of certain areas, and the types of things could be created in stars as they get drawn together with other stars and condensed, and there's all sorts of crazy shit that goes on there which nobody can comprehend. I
mm.
can't anyway. I'm not. I say nobody. I'm sure there's people that could be like, actually, this is what would happen. You're completely wrong.
It's very
But
simple, yes.
yeah, it's actually very simple. Let me draw you a little tiny picture. Pat me on the head as you do it. Maybe there is that. But yeah, there's crazy stuff, and like I say, we don't even understand Earth or like the ocean or rock formations or the weird fucking Nazca trails or
Mm.
fucking the Antarctic. So I find it difficult to then be like, in my lifetime we're going to fly around the stars. I think we'll probably understand Earth more. We might populate the sea more, whether on top of it or underneath it in some sort of like fashion in our lifetime. But after that, it's like all bets are off. I don't think. I think the future will be a complete surprise. We'll be like, well, I didn't see that coming.
I don't know. Unless, depending, he's still there.
Yes, yes.
All right. It's just very quiet. Unless there's some like, like obviously this is a sort of warm up, almost like an event that changes society, and then there might be a bunch of these over the next 10 years that all of a sudden cause society to change enough that like there's all of a sudden a technological advance jump up, and all of a sudden we're in a different world because the sci-fi world's here, and like I'm not saying
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know about our life, but that might be enough to just extend our life maybe another 50 years or
I
something.
think, I think Elon. I think in the next 10 years we'll know if we're gonna have a massive jump. I think it'll be the next 10 to 20 years that
Yeah, I
we'll
think
have
so.
a significant. Like I think we have. I think if we went from the 1990s to now, like we just jumped, we'd have been blown away
Yeah, we'd
by the
fucking melt.
technological advances. Yeah, we would. Like, I
Just
mean,
like,
if we went from the day we met at uni, right? So say 20 years ago, so we were like 20 years old-ish, give or take a year or two. If we went in the last 18 years and like even just computer games alone, we'd be like, oh my fucking lord, have you seen this fucking whatever game? Every game, like this looks 10 times better than any game I've ever played. So, and like mobile phones and movies and everything, every sort of electronic based thing has been so much more advanced.
What were we playing, like GTA? What was the GTA that came out at uni? It was probably like
it was the one with the fighter
or...
jets on it. Yeah, it was the one with the fighter jets because we used to do fighter jets with Freebird.
San Andreas,
San Andreas. Yeah.
So if San Andreas came out then, and then maybe not GTA 5. Yeah, GTA. What is it? 5, is it? Yeah.
We're on 5.
That's even that's old now, like but.
Yeah, well, that was a launch title. Well, it was the last title for the last console, so it was at the previous generation. So the next, so say go from Red Dead 1 to Red Dead 2.
Yeah, I mean that's a big jump anyway. But like, I mean, fucking just even this Assassin's Creed, like if you compare that to like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I say, we would have been playing Assassin's Creed 1 maybe, 1 or 2 at the time.
That's still a good game.
So playing it.
And that's 10 years. Anyway, isn't it? Like it's like we're still 10 years removed. I think.
So that's what I mean. I think like if we look 20 years in the future, the extent of what it'll be by then, I think will be mind-blowing. I think there will be some sort of colony on Mars, whether it's humans or robots, I don't know. There'll be some sort of ocular fucking mind enhancing
neural link thing.
Mobile phone. Yeah, neural link. Like mobile phones won't be a thing, watches won't be a thing. I think people will have I think it depends because it depends how society chooses to follow it. I think perhaps there might be the downfall of it because I think it'll be monetized. I don't think necessarily by Tesla, but I think like a mobile phone is because people like download an app that then sends them ads every 5 seconds or everything with what like YouTube was one thing and now it's something else. Fucking same with every other media. It's like started off as like a pure thing and then it's like how can we make money from this?
Wait a second though, what happens if there's some kind of social revolution with regards to that kind of activity? Like there's some kind of pushback about it, or just saying like look at all the damage that this caused during the lockdown and whatever, all the money grabbing, and it's time to stop all this shit and all the all the bad shit that the bad news, the fucking false news and the fake bullshit and all the lies that corporations tell and all the shit that they do. But, what happens if something like that happens in society and they're just like, we need a restructure?
I don't know. The thing is, it's very difficult to go backwards. The same thing we're talking about with power earlier. It's like especially with media, it's very difficult for it to de-evolve into something like simpler. It always seems to like the new thing is always a more like
complicated structure,
quicker, quicker, more punchy version of whatever the previous thing was. You know what I mean? Like especially when it comes to like say to corporations and making money. I think. And like I said, I do think there will be some weird backlash off the back of the coronavirus and how people are like. I think there'll be stuff again that we don't see now that will be significant in the future. Really. I mean, they're saying like, I saw something the other day. It's like the top 5 billionaires in the world have more money than all the other billionaires combined, or something like that. And I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. So the top 5 billionaires have got like 100 billion plus, and most billionaires are like, I made $1 billion. Like like
I got $1 billion.
Dr. Dre made $1 billion from Beats, and you're just like, oh my god, he made $1 billion. But there's people like, I've got 150. I've got $1 billion for the next 100 years. Like $1 billion per year for the next 100 years. And then I've got change to buy a small island with a jet and a space rocket. They're the people that will have spaceships before they die, or their children will.
Yeah.
But I do think that there could be a better division of wealth or some sort of system that helps. Like, so wealth is less of an important thing. It's less about like the drive for money and more about the drive for achievement. Like to make things better, whether it pays you or not. I think that would be it's not a very capitalist way of doing things. I think that would be a better way to do something.
I think the two ways would be either like they start getting all the resources from the solar system, so they find a way to mine stuff. So all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the structure of money changes then.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
resources become fucking essentially limitless. Or replicators, like teleporting gets invented,
Yeah.
and we start being able.
That's
So
the thing. If
therefore,
they could create something that could, like a 3D printer that could make food and water and the basic,
yeah, it could
like
transform
necessities.
from base elements in
Yeah.
do
Yeah,
something.
or some sort of algae that could create like the Impossible Burger that's the burger
Yeah.
without meat,
Yeah.
or like the ones they can grow in a lab where they can grow something. If they could make a super fast, epic version of that, I think the world could be a more interesting place. I think it could be less about the struggle for money and more about being part of an overall thing. I don't know. But it also takes the people with the money to kind of start that. Like, if you've got money, it's going to be very difficult to be but if you've got 105 billion, I feel like you're at a very different level, and to even give up a billion would make you feel like,
That's
it'd
it,
be
but
like, why
those
should
are
I?
the gatekeepers, though, because they're the ones that are going to be like, well, why should I allow this society to happen? Because then my entire wealth means
Yeah.
nothing anymore. And
the thing is, with that, it's like, if you're like, they talk about, like Illuminati or Cabal or whatever it is. At the end of the day, if you've got $100 billion, you don't necessarily have to be the guy that whispers in someone's ear or does something. You could just be like, I don't like the idea of them building a dock over there. Buy the entire thing and just tell me you can't do it. You don't have to be the guy that's like, I'll manipulate the government and I'll use, you just be like, just buy it. They can't, they can't buy it.
It's almost like you
and
feel
just offer
like
whoever is it for sale more money.
You feel like those 5 people, say, are potentially all of them could be beyond the Illuminati sort of structure, and it's just the people below them who are farting around trying to get the power. But these people
trying to manipulate and get in groups and stuff. These guys
just
I don't need a gang because I'm just like the richest person. I can pay anybody to literally do anything. Yeah. Because I mean, if you're that rich, you could say, I'm going to give you $1 million to kill yourself. Your family get it. You could literally do anything. You could be like, I want you to torture them. Both of you getting paid. I want you to jump off that building onto a trampoline. I want to see if it works. No, I've always wondered if you drove a car off a roof, what would happen. So I want you to do it. Here's $10 million to give to your family. You've got a year, and at the end of that year, you have to drive off that building. You could do anything you wanted. You could be like, let's start a space program. You're that kind of rich.
This is what I mean. This is what annoys me, though, when there are people that are like that and have this sort of money. What are they doing with all this money? Why is their interests always like just fucking shitty business stuff? It's like, why aren't you fucking doing what Elon Musk is doing? Why aren't you just constantly pumping money into shit like that and getting us?
I'm guessing they do give money to whatever the thing is that.
This is why.
But I also think.
But this is why I'm just not buying it. That I feel like it's like, well, what are they doing with all this shit? Why aren't they? Surely there's something going on behind the scenes that we don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, if you've got if you've got more than $1 billion, then whatever you do influences the market. Like if a billionaire has shares in something, then they influence as they do stuff. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense that they just whatever they do on a daily basis will influence it, even if they choose not to. Like if they fucking buy shares in Microsoft, then anybody that's watching them is going to be like, yeah, I'm going to buy shares in Microsoft because that billionaire just bought. So it's like anything they do will be a manipulation. And like you say, if they're not part of a cabal, or even if they are, it's like I'm guessing the top 5 richest people on the planet know each other. I'm guessing they're like, hi, Dave, because they're the only person that can actually be in any sort of mental mindset to understand that person. It's like if
be like
2
all
people
the famous
on the
people
streets are going to be understanding. Yeah,
it's like the famous people in Hollywood all hang out together because they fucking can't hang out with people who aren't famous or out in the business.
I mean, I'm sure they have, I'm sure billionaires have poor friends, but I'm guessing their poor friends don't stay poor for very long. You know what I mean? Because if I was a billionaire and you were my mate and you had no money, this is why when people talk about manipulating the system and stuff like that. But if someone's a billionaire and they have a mate who they know is quite smart, but they just didn't, they didn't catch the same running life and things got harder and whatever, they just say to him like, actually, well, I'll let you be CEO of my company. You get $1 million a year. You don't have to do anything. Just sit home and just do it. You know what I mean? Like, if they have a way to do that,
Just
why
turn
wouldn't
up
they?
to the
We'll just
board
go play golf
meetings.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Snoop Dogg has a guy who pays $50,000 a year to roll joints for him. I think we've had a conversation about this before. I'm like, that's just his mate. But he was just like, here, I've got shitloads of money. Have some money. Yeah, you know, like have some money, and all you have to do is just roll joints for me. I mean, admittedly, you have to stay up till like 4 a.m. at parties and shit. But you know, you get to meet famous people and you hang out with Snoop Dogg. It's like you're Snoop Dogg's friend. You're gonna get laid, and you get 50 grand a year. All right, cool. And if you're a billionaire, then your friends just happen to get more. You know, like, and they're just different and they do different things. But yeah, of course. Like if you're a billionaire, like there's no way you can't influence the world. A billionaire couldn't not influence the world. And I'm sure there's definitely like, oh, let's look into that thing. Or, you know, there'll be companies that like start out and they go, that's quite a good idea. And a billionaire will just be like, here, I'll give you the money to do whatever it is you're going to do. Because they're not going to do it themselves. Why do they don't need to? They'll pay some guy £1 million. Like, there you go, start your company up, start that tech company up, or, you know, yeah, that's all they'll do. They'll just invest in stuff. And like say, that'll obviously influence the market because other people are like, well, if they're investing, it must be a good thing. And I think that's why sometimes bad ideas also happen because someone invests in something and everyone follows them, and then there's money behind it, and then you realize actually it was just a billionaire who didn't really care about the 100 million that he gave that person because it was like, yeah. But someone else saw it and went, he gave him 100 million, it must be an amazing thing.
I'll sink my life savings into this.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like, oh, we can monetize that thing. Like say, if it was say Twitter, then they could be like, oh, well, we can monetize that thing, but actually we tend to lose people if people are too right wing, or the guy that invested £1 million doesn't like the fact that someone called him a knobhead on there. So from now on, anyone that calls him a knobhead we'll get rid of, or anyone that says that, you know, his wife's African American, or you know, he's a Trump supporter, or he's not a Trump supporter. So you know, and that's how things, I would imagine, change. I don't think it's with like this evil intent necessarily. I mean, there may well be a couple in a super like elite Bilderberg group and stuff, but I don't necessarily think they're all super evil geniuses. I think they want to maintain their status quo, and I think a lot of them just make decisions that they think are right, but for themselves. I feel like I just went on a bit of a rant there. Nice little rant.
I think that's my brain just melted down.
Yeah,
covered a lot of subjects.
We've talked a lot about, like, I don't know how we got so into like conspiracy, weird, alternate universe, alien. Yeah, I feel like this is the result of 2.5 months lockdown. Though I feel like, you know, we've talked a lot about a lot of different interesting subjects.
A lot of subjects to talk about now.
Yeah. But I also find when I'm out of things to do, I watch things about space, and it makes me like, you know, super like.
I think when I'm out, I start watching these fringe subjects, you know, that not just space, just all these conspiracy things.
Just go back to it, yeah. I go back to it because it's like a comfortable blanket. It's like, oh, what's going on? Because that's the thing at the moment. It's like I know what's going on in the MMA world. I know what's going on in the podcasting world. I know what's going on in the Lego Masters world. And it's like, oh, what's going on in the what's the like the crazy people talking about at the moment? I honestly thought there'd be more UFO sightings, though. I thought there'd be a bunch of UFO sightings with the fact that everyone's at home and, you know, people are. But it's been a bit upsetting.
People are at home, aren't they? They're not out on the on the deserts like filming like they usually do and stuff.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, there is that aspect of it. But you'd also think people at home with their phones and, you know, not sleeping and sitting out drinking all night. You'd think there'd be some interesting videos or something up there. But there doesn't seem to be much. I'm currently in mute watching a video of the Voyagers leaving the solar system and how they did it and how they catapulted off Saturn and stuff. It's quite, but it's silent. I muted it, but it's just like spaceships flying through space, and then like I'll go to a weird diagram every now and again. No idea what it's talking about. Quite interesting looking. We've covered a lot of interesting things tonight.
It's been a deep dive. It's
been a deep dive.
It's a 3 hour. Went up on 3 hour 50 minutes.
Did you record this one? Did you record all of what?
Been recording from pretty much within.
I think that was a good one. I think that was a good one because I don't think we went. I don't think we went too much into
rape
anything
or
bad.
Jews or
Yeah, it
anything.
wasn't anything. Yeah, nothing like I was like, I shouldn't have said that. We're being recorded. Yeah, I don't think so. I think at one point you did turn me around on Scientology as we slowly went off into that direction. You were like,
Yeah.
let's not talk about that.
You
I was
started
like,
walking
you know
off.
what? Good call, because I feel like neither of us know anything about it, and it might offend a lot of people.
Probably not the best thing. It's probably not a decent
No,
topic to be
no.
talking about. Anyway.
No, it's not, and it's a very weird topic. So yeah, I
Mm.
do. I'm glad you turned us around on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think we've had a good another good podcast, even though we haven't technically released one yet. This could be our first. I think this is a good first.
I'm still working
of
out how
the,
to. I need to get Premiere, Adobe Premiere, off one of my hard drives. I don't know where it is though, because that's the only program I know I can use to rip the fucking sound file off this.
Adobe Premiere. Get it sorted, man.
I've
You
got
need
it
to find that shit.
somewhere, but yeah, it's just like I've got to work out how to.
Have a look for it. Don't kill Viking, fucking Persians or whatever it is until Athenians until you find it tomorrow. That can be your mission in the morning.
Okay.
No Athenians can die until you've found, and you can't just play Assassin's Creed without killing Athenians.
Just kill
like,
Spartans all
only
day.
then. That's fine. Yeah, let's go to the thing. But yeah, there you go. Find it because I think this was a good one. I think this was. I mean, we went very much into the very weirdest things we talk about, but I think it was quite an interesting one. We definitely touched on COVID. I don't think we got too controversial or anything.
It was good. It's good. But yeah, these will end up being like a kind of the lockdown files. Just release them in a big chunk, edited.
I feel like when you die, someone's going to find all these on the computer and be like, "What the fuck was this about? Was Dan into like, who's he communicating with? Who's Petula?" And it'll be like years to come. There'll be a movie about if you get murdered now and I'm the last person to talk to you, then I feel like I'm definitely going to be hunted down. Oh, they can't find him. They're on Discord. They can't even follow the call. I'm pretty sure they can, but they'll definitely find records of it. But yeah, I feel like years to come you'll find these and be like, oh yeah, we talked about that. But I'm enjoying the recording of it. It makes me like think about shit in a bit more of a deeper thing. Like when you were asking questions about the Infinite Man earlier, I had to really how would this work if I don't think you'd have super strength if you had even if you're strong. I don't think you could push it, but then you wouldn't be able to. Yeah, I got it.
I like it. There's solid answers. Come on,
yeah,
I was
fucking answer. At least some sort of how can we get out of this world-breaking idea? Okay, if you're in this thing, if you're super immortal, then you're you can't get hurt, but maybe you can't grow because you can't. Yeah.
I'm like the social structure of this society. I haven't even got past how they aren't dying yet. Give me a minute.
The thing is, we always do this. We don't just talk about wouldn't it be cool if Iron Man fought the Hulk in space or something. It's always so imagine a world if you could where blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, but what about social injustice in that world? Wait a minute, you're talking about this, but do people poo? So it's there's always this weird subset of questions. Wait a minute, does this? So in this world that you've created, what type of immortal are we talking about? Are we talking about vampire immortal where they can be killed, or are we talking about invulnerable? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you'd have relationships, but would you have love? But if you can't have hate, because why would you hate somebody? And I was like, because that's when you were like, would you ever have any trauma? I'm like, well, you'd have I mean, there is ways you could be traumatized, but would it ever be as bad as losing the loved ones? And I'm like, maybe not. And also, even if you're traumatized, you just go on for another 100 years, and then it's 100 years, and nobody dies, so it's really difficult to traumatize someone when no one dies, other than slavery and rape.
What trauma would there be? Because there'd be no violent trauma. Anyway, this is opening up again, isn't
it? Yeah, no, because I won't sleep tonight. I'll be like, right, so I've written all the rules for this world.
Yeah, what are we using this world for? No, it was just a hypothetical question. I thought you were fucking doing this for a story or something.
Yeah.
Wasting all this fucking effort for nothing.
Like a spider diagram on your wall with there's a string. Okay, so I figured it out. So if it were to happen today and then continue from this point forward, within this many years, we'd have to populate another planet. We'd have to populate another planet fucking sharpish if no one died. Because people would still have babies for the next 100 years before they were like, oh, should we not have babies now? Should we stop?
think,
Yeah.
yeah, we'd have to just pile out into the galaxy. And plus, it'd be
Oh,
dead easy.
instantly.
Space travel would be pretty easy then. You just need to get to the planet because you wouldn't need any breathing apparatus or anything. You'd all survive this travel, and you could survive on
Yeah.
Mars without any air or food.
But then, like, imagine how many spaceships just explode on that first trip, and then there's just like thousands of people floating around in
That's how
space
you
for
get in
eternity
space, floating through space.
until we land in Mars, and
Just
then
wait
like
till the next
create a
fucking
station.
ship tries to get to Mars, and they'll just scoop you up.
Yeah, just
I
pick
said-
you up on the way. Actually, they just send for every 10, they send one empty, and they just pick people up as they go.
Yeah, it's for the people who
Your ship exploded as well.
fell out of the first ship.
Or there's just like a string that it's like, like when you pull yourself across a river with rope.
Yeah.
There's rope on either side, you pull yourself across. It's just like that, but into space. So everyone just goes, you just got to keep going, just keep going, don't let
Technically,
go.
couldn't they do that? They could have so many people on the planet that they could just tie them all together with a massive long chain, and then just like launch someone at Mars, and they just pull loads of other people with them.
No, that could not happen. We move far too fast through space that whoever was pulling them would they'd be swinging around in circles, just be sick. You're moving at like 60,000 miles an hour or something, or whatever the fuck it is, miles per second or something.
You could have
Yeah, I don't think that would. I don't know.
I
don't know.
No, wait. The International
I'm
Space
listening.
Station. You could fly a load of people up there. Right.
Yeah, because
So
that
you've
orbits,
got, say you've got a massive space station. You've got like 1,000 people on this space station, and you put them all in the airlock or in the fucking hangar, and like they're all connected by a chain, one after the other, and then you launch one, jumps out at Mars. You launch them precisionally through a super.
So they'll land on Mars with a big thud, just like
he
poof, onto
fires
Mars.
it. You fire them at Mars, and then like the next few minutes, another one goes to Mars, like follows on the chain, and like they just keep going, and then like you just keep flying people up and attaching them to the end of the chain before it leaves the space station, like before the 1,000 people are done, and then that's how you. And then eventually the front person would hit the surface of Mars, and then everyone else would just arrive behind them.
I'm not convinced that would be the best way to travel, because to shoot the first person through space, it would take them like 2 months to get there. So by the time you've shot that first person, you've only tied the 10,000th person to the back of it. And what if that guy was just a couple of feet off, and Mars moves, so you'd have to shoot where Mars wasn't. So you'd have to shoot into the line of Mars, so that hopefully at some point Mars comes around and clips him. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'll say that right now.
I'm thinking.
I'm not convinced.
You get this one guy on Mars. You land one dude on Mars.
Let's call him Dave. Let's call him
Dave on
Mars.
Mars. Dave gets to Mars,
Yeah.
and then you shoot a chain. I don't know why it's a chain. It's just like it's like a microfilament cord.
Yeah.
And
Just
like
some
you
sort of string. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just attaches it to the surface of Mars. And everyone on the moon base just fucking piles off, and just fucking Assassin's Creed's zip lines.
Just
down
for 2 months, just
all the way to Mars. Yeah. And
no, that wouldn't work. It's in a completely different orbit. This is like
I'm not.
It's like
I don't see
tying
any
two
reason
conkers
why
together.
this wouldn't work.
It's like tie two balls to a piece of string, right? And then with 1,000 ants on it, and just throw the two up in the air, spinning around through a vortex, and then hopefully the ants will make it from one side of that crazy vortex to the other.
Imagine
I think you'd have a lot of people in space.
if you had an invincible cord that you could attach.
Yeah. It can be made of humans. You could just tie humans together.
Yeah, it could just be like a cord.
Just have
and
humans
all
one hand, like a hand to hand across the galaxy. That's what it could be called. And everyone just holds hands, and they keep shimmying the person out until he touches Mars, and then he just pulls the rest of them in one at a time.
If you
That's
could
what it
just
did. It'd be
attach
hands against.
the moon to Mars with a cord that was invincible, and just leave it. Would that cause some chaos?
I mean, I'm assuming there'd be stuff that would hit it, and I mean, with an invincible cord potentially, but then how do you attach it to the planet? Because the planet's not invincible, so whatever you attach it with. I'll tell you what, right? I think it'd probably be easier to make a spaceship. That's all I'm saying. I just think with the mass involved in this, if you can do that, right, you can make a spaceship or fucking some sort of Einstein-Rosen bridge where they just, creates a little wormhole.
So many people, you could just try loads of things. They're all live forever. You just have someone else could build the spaceship.
Yeah, if you could live forever, right, and you were really good at maths, maybe you would create a program for yourself where you're like, I'm going to start on the moon and I'm going to jump into space, and at some point I'll land on Mars. Like you could probably do.
I think
if you had an eternity, you could probably figure out the master which direction and what speed you'd have to jump in order to make it to Mars at some point.
Chris, this is what I think, right?
This is Dan's 2 cents.
I think
this is our end of our podcast. We like to go with what Dan's taken from the day.
I think a civilization like that at some point would just launch people into space without a rocket or anything or any spaceship. They just launch them in every single direction and just be like, well, eventually every one of you will hit a planet and you'll just get to start doing stuff on that planet. By then
just start a life, just start digging.
By then we'll have caught up with you as a civilization. Eventually, like, you know, as a spacefaring civilization, we'll eventually.
That would be a fascinating start to a series. Just like 5 Ubermen get shot off into the galaxy in 5
series,
or hundreds.
Just one guy just lands on a planet
because
nobody's
it could be like
there.
Quantum Leap, where every episode is a different like version of that alien or that being, that that super soldier landing on a planet, and it's an episodic thing. Yeah, and it could just be like it goes back to some of them, and some of them start like empires.
And then sometimes they land on planets with other spacefaring races, and they're like, holy shit! And then they get access to a spaceship, and then they can collect up other Supermen that have landed.
Yeah, the people that just landed on a planet of dust. Yeah, exactly.
And then they're just like, fuck it, let's do this. Yeah, and it's all that's a series right there. There you go.
That's a series, man. That's
why the fuck is it so hard to make TV shows when we come up with a TV show every
this is what people do.
Every 45 minutes here.
We just need to, it's because we need to send this in. And also we've got very much the basis of a TV show, and I say basis lightly.
I'm ready to go with that. I'm ready to shoot.
I haven't thought of a character.
No, we're ready to go.
I mean, I think we could pitch it. I reckon we could make 10 minutes of pitching this.
Improv and film. Start filming. I want this filming by the time next week in the middle of this lockdown. This starts filming.
I mean, I've got nothing else to do, so might as well, make it serious. But I also think if we wrote half the stuff down, I mean, I'd say half stuff. If we wrote it all down, then maybe 10% of it would be useful, and we send that off. I'm sure that's how stuff's made. People just do this and then send it to somebody else.
What I want, right? I'd love to have access to some.
I want.
Well, I suppose I could. I could just go on the internet and find some. But it's like someone who writes scripts and is good at writing scripts, you know. So I could go, here's my fucking base idea, bang, there you go. And here's some ideas for characters that I've come up with, and their names, and then they just write out the script, and then you have someone, you know, this is what I imagine. This is what production houses do, I suppose, and then they have someone who just makes it into whatever, you know. If it's going to be a comic, then someone draws it and does it because of the comic, and it just goes down the line, and then or someone becomes a film. You know, I want someone to just develop my ideas and have. If I was a billionaire, like, you know, I'd just have my own studio.
This is what I'm saying. Exactly. If you're a billionaire, this is what you do, and you get your mates in, and you're like, you're CEO of this, but they're all doing the work. We just sit around and make money. Yeah, that's what CEOs do.
I just like really. Obviously, I'd hire good people. I mean, obviously, I'd have my mates as well, but I'd hire like good writers and good directors and all this, and make movies and things. And then you're like, we could just
$1 million idea.
come up with the fucking ideas and just get someone to make them. I don't know why it's down to us to make the ideas. Come up with. It's not fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just to do with laziness. I think that could be it. And we'd have to. I mean, we come up with so many ideas that we'd spend all our. We should write.
What annoys me is it seems that people who actually get to make things are so busy making things that they haven't had time to come up with the good ideas. No, but they haven't had time to come up with really good ideas. They haven't sat around having stone conversations like this.
I think also
come up with a good idea.
I think have the ability to do it are usually the people that are doing it to someone else's idea. So someone does come up with an idea like ours that isn't as good, perhaps, or is as good, but they have concept and they give it to other people to write it. And then people that can write it are writing other people's ideas, writing other people's jokes or sitcoms or whatever. And there's more of a push towards people being more independent of that. And I think stuff like Netflix does help with that. But I do think, of course, it's just a case of doing it. I think a lot of
suppose it's like,
a lot of Tarantino or whatever. He works a lot with his.
Like the guarantee, I suppose it's like if I knew I worked for some company that if I wrote an idea that I had, like we just had that idea then, if I started writing that as a script and creating characters, that it would get made. you know, then
But
have more faith
yeah,
in
go on.
doing it instead of just
But
like.
also, the people that become writers for them companies are the people that did it themselves, and
I
then they
suppose
kind of
it's
go,
if
"Oh,
you
that was a
build
good
it, they
idea."
will come.
It's if you build it, they will come.
That's what it
Going
is,
back
isn't it?
to our aliens, going back to Close
Yeah.
Encounters, which we mentioned earlier. So yeah, it's a vicious circle of having to do stuff, and I just haven't got the time. I'm
Got
just
a
sat on my
lot
ass all day.
going on
And,
Assassin's
you
Creed
know,
at the
doing
moment.
some yoga.
I've been
I've done a
drawing
lot of
though
yoga.
again, so
I've done
that's all right.
2 months of yoga. Have you? Oh, that's
Yeah,
exciting.
it started, but
I
not
can't
very,
wait to see it. Like when
it's
we,
not good.
I honestly think, right, that when we catch up next time, we should set up and do a podcast.
Yeah, we'll do
And
a proper
do
reunion,
this,
like
and we'll
proper
just
like.
we'll do
Puts
a
it
talk, and
finally
we'll talk through your
together.
drawings, and we'll talk stuff. Yeah, we can bring up stuff and have a conversation. We'll record it like we do it with this, because I do think it's fun. I'm enjoying it, so
Well,
I think that's the whole point.
And there we go. That's the end. It's all been said. Some weird discussions. I'm not even going to try and review it all. I'm just going to crack on with editing the rest of this nonsense. Thanks for listening. We've been Word of the Horde, that famous podcast. It's over for another week, thank God. I don't know why I'm saying a week. I'm editing these every day. I mean, I'm putting them up regularly, so I'm going insane. Thank you. Anyway, goodbye.